Yes, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. We are live across the networks. This is Offsides trade deadline show for 2022. Already lots of news coming across the wire. My co-host is always Mr. Josh Egan right there. And this is proudly brought to you by our friends over at Boxing Rock Brewing Co. Make sure you get yourself some Puck Off Lagerdale when you get out here. Absolutely delicious. Man, Josh, we got a show today, buddy.
I know. I'm trying to do 5 things at once here. I got TSN on. I got my dog next to me. I'm talking to you. I'm refreshing Twitter.
Let's make it all happen. It's going to be a good day. Obviously, a little fireworks happening yesterday with the Toronto Maple Leafs acquiring Mark Giordano. Want to ask you right at the get-go, big trade for the Toronto Maple Leafs, a guy that everybody thought they might get. What do you think of the return that went to the Seattle Kraken?
I thought it was an absolute masterclass by Dubas. Essentially, right? The Geo trade broke, and then nothing came of it because obviously they had to wait till 5 p.m. Due to the salary cap and all that. And then the details came out that Travis Dermott had been flipped to Vancouver for a third, which I figured would happen. And then the trade breaks that all it cost them for, was Colin Blackwell and Mark Giordano was 2 seconds and a third. Well, I saw that as only 2 seconds because you just got that third essentially back from Vancouver. And then you find out Seattle is also retaining 50% salary on Geo. Great trade. I mean, I had no issues with it whatsoever.
No, it's absolutely amazing. I'm loving the fact that they did not give up their first-round pick or top prospects, by the way, which other teams were doing. So, I mean, right now the Toronto Maple Leafs kind of sitting pretty going into today. And there are some things floating around, just checking in with a couple of the people that might be jumping on the show here today. Shout out to them. That the Leafs may have more salary cap within a window than we might know about. I don't know if you saw that tweet yesterday where there's that variance. I guess that's why they waited until 5 p.m., where they get an extra little bump in the window. That may benefit the Leafs again today. What are your thoughts there? And it just really appears that there's things that we don't know about.
So, yeah, I did look into that, and I don't think it's as high as – I have the tweet here, so I can read it out for people who may not know what we are referencing. Okay, maybe I don't have it here.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, but even – there was a bigger one that came out yesterday that said the Leafs might be able to have upwards of almost $11 million in cap space today.
Yeah. So it would be a very complicated situation for that to happen. And I don't think it actually can if you crunch the numbers, but they will have quite a bit of space available if somebody claims Mrazek, Clifford goes down, and a couple other guys go down, then they can have upwards of, I think it was $7 million in cap space to spend between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. Now, that's only an hour, so you're really hoping the lottery balls fall in your favor for that to happen, because otherwise I believe they only have like 1.3 to work with as the roster currently sits. Like, obviously, we're on trade deadline day, so there's going to be a lot of movement, but no, I can see them doing something big here because I think they will have a little bit more room than we think they do have. However, I don't think it will be upwards of $11 million.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to see what we do have for the cap space for the Toronto Maple Leafs and what they're able to do today. I look around the league and look at the prices being paid. Wow, I mean, look at the Hagel deal for one. What's it? Two first prospects. It looks like the Leafs got a similar type player back from the Seattle Kraken for way less than that. I'm wondering what you feel there.
I didn't get that one. Like, that was... Hang on, I think a trade just came through. Oh, never mind. No, but yeah, sorry, say that again.
Just trying to figure out what you think of the Hagel deal. The price for Hagel was huge, but the Toronto Maple Leafs seem they got a kind of player that plays the same thing. By all accounts, it looks like this guy may be able to ash out, 15 to 20 goals a year, given the opportunity. Will play on the bottom pair or bottom six for the Maple Leafs, but really, in all honesty, has the chirp, the grit, and all that stuff that we've been looking for too. And I know the first thing everybody looks at is 5'9". Come on now, ridiculous.
Yeah.
Let's not go down that road. Guys have fight, guys have spark, guys have fire that burns inside them. Doesn't matter how tall they are. Come on now. So I want to know, why was Hagel worth so much? And is it just teams maybe greasing the old Tampa Bay Lightning for once?
I think it was this, because I'm just reading it here, just to make sure I got everything right. And yeah, like 2 first-round picks, that's a lot. And then you include, 2 prospects. It's I thought that was a little bit of an overpayment, and you know, good on good on Chicago for getting that much. But man, I don't know what Tampa was doing with that one. I think you could have found someone somewhere else for a little bit cheaper for similar results. I mean, I'm sure Brandon Hagel's going to love being there, and good for him, good for Tampa for getting their guy. But I don't know. That might be a tough one for Tampa Bay to swallow when they don't have those first-round picks in the upcoming drafts.
No, definitely. Hey, we just want to shout out Preds fan checking in over on TikTok. This is Offsides NHL Trade Deadline Show 2022. We got a comment over here from Math Lover 5K. Hagel is a better scorer and is under contract for 2 seasons after this at 1.5. I don't think Blackwell is a comparable. We're going to have to see what happens and what plays out from there. Because I do believe that this may be a good deal for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and it may end up being a player that they want to keep in their lineup and in their roster.
Yeah, I think it might be, but it's one of those things where I think Blackwell was more of a fit for the Leafs than Hagel was going to be, and it kind of seems like Seattle may have wanted to include him in that Geo deal, and it might have been one of those things saying, "Well, we want Giordano." It's like, okay, well, can you take Blackwell too? And then it evolved from there. We'll never know those discussions. Unfortunately, the NHL doesn't do a Drive to Survive type show, so we'll never see what happens there. But I'm not too upset with what's happened so far with the Leafs. There's been some trades that perplex me. Seattle seems to be moving and shaking. Can they ice a roster for their next game? It's going to be interesting to see. They don't have too many guys on that roster right now, but let's keep moving here. Do you want to take a look at our hit lists?
I would love to look at our hit list. Unfortunately, StreamYard is not allowing me to pop them up at the moment.
I'll throw them on Twitter.
Throw them up on Twitter. Yeah, just toss them up there. We'll go through yours first because yours has some fun things on there. Absolutely loving the fact that you put a guy on there that's the hope, a wing, and a prayer for you. But why not? Give me a second, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, technology is not my favorite thing in the morning. You watch. We'll wrap this up today, and there will be a absolute banger of a trade for the Maple Leafs. I think they do have to wait until the last minute, unfortunately.
So what's our coverage plan here? Just to let everybody know, are we live all day? Or are we checking?
We're going to be live till about I think 12:30 Eastern time, because I do have to go get the kidlings from school today.
Sounds good.
We'll be live till about there. If you want to stay on in a solar venture, you definitely could.
I could probably do that. Just leave your screen dark, and I'll take it from here. I'll co-host with my dog. It'll be fun.
Woohoo! Co-hosting with the pup. I'm having a little bit of trouble finding these things I just downloaded here.
My favorite part of trade deadline day, honestly, is the way they fill time. Like, they go through all the analysis and all that, and no trade has come through yet. So then they just start telling stories and stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Well, we'll be getting into our stories too as soon as we get some folks coming on. We have some good questions to go. For whatever reason, I'm not seeing this document here. I saved both images. Where the hell did they go? Had all this ready. It never works the way you want them to. Oh my Lanta. All right, anyways, if I can't do it that way, then we're going to do it this way. All right, so Josh Egan's list was. We'll go through it. Just see if I can get it here. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, Leafs obviously go get Mark Giordano. He may be playing with TJ Brody comes back.
I don't think he'll start with Brody right away, to be honest.
I kind of would like him to.
Would be cool. I don't know. I got to see what else they do here, because by the end of the day, he could be playing with Jacob Chikrin for all we know.
If the Leafs were able to somehow swing a Jacob Chikrin deal, what would it look like for you? What would the Leafs have to give up? Obviously, Matthew Knies would be going out the door.
I don't think so. That you have a bunch of other prospects you can offer them that make up for Matthew Knies. Like, it'd be such a big trade for the Leafs and the Coyotes. I think you would have to include 2 first-tier prospects, maybe not your first rounder, but maybe a couple second rounders again, and like a mid-tier play. Like, is Kerfoot involved in that trade? Like, I wouldn't even know where to start. Do you start with Nick Robertson and then go from there? Include Kerfoot. So there's your prospect. Add another prospect, an NHL player, and then
NHL player under contract. Yep.
Yeah, and then maybe a couple draft picks. Like, is that a good starting point to build the trade from there? Yeah, I don't know, but I don't think you want to send Matthew Knies out the door. That would be
that would seem to upset the masses, because obviously everybody has got this guy very well valued here with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and rightfully so. It does look like he could be an impact power forward for the Toronto Maple Leafs down the road. I look at the fact that you probably have to start at around 2 first-round picks, because that seems
then I'm out.
That has to be it'd probably be 2 first-round picks. If you're not adding a top prospect, it's not going to be. You're probably looking maybe add Robertson to the deal.
I'd be okay with that, but I don't want to touch first-round picks. I don't want to lose those. We're not Tampa Bay over here.
We're not, but you know what? This got this for me today. Sitting here, so excited to do the show. By the way, thanks everybody for tuning in across the networks. We're on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and of course we're over on TikTok. We'll be taking questions from TikTok and across the realm. Proudly brought to you by the sponsor up in the corner there, Boxing Rock Brewing Co. Be sure to get yourself some Puck Off Lagered Ale when you're out here. Here's the big thing: the Toronto Maple Leafs are in go for it mode, man. This is the most go for it I've seen. They spent assets to get Lyubushkin. They spent assets to go and get Mark Giordano. The thing is, they haven't spent their big assets yet, and that allows them to be able to make more moves today. I got Fleury being brought up over here. The Leafs are not bringing in Marc-Andre Fleury. I think them putting Mrazek on waivers is a huge vote of confidence towards Jack Campbell. Do I see them bringing a goaltender? Maybe so. Let's look at Josh's list here going into today.
You're already dunking on my list already.
So
now, I'd like to clarify.
We got Ricardo Raquel.
Yeah, hang on. I'd like to clarify. The only instructions I was given for this list was please make a wish list. Now, these are the players I wish were on the Leafs by the end of the day. It doesn't have to make any sense. I just followed the instructions.
He did just follow the instructions to a T. So we're going to run down this list here, and we'll break down each player on here as we watch the Dallas Stars make a deal here, bringing in Wedgwood from the Coyotes, it seems, for a pick. Dallas reloading up on goaltenders, maybe something we don't know about the situation going there.
That happened last night, though.
Yeah, Jay. Well, it's just being brought up here on the screen, so I might as well talk about it for a moment. Jake Ottinger there in Dallas. You also have Braden Holtby. Anton Hudobin went for surgery. Interesting move, to say the least. Maybe they're preparing to move Braden Holtby or someone else off of that roster. Probably not Jake Ottinger for sure. But yeah, let's look at your list. Let's start breaking it down here. We have Ricardo Raquel kicking off your list right off the top. So obviously, we look at Ricardo Raquel and we say, okay, player that can play offense, player that can probably slot into your top 6. What does it cost to get a player like Ricardo Raquel?
Probably quite a bit, but I really want him on the team, so I put him on my list. But he is one of those guys that I think will add some jump to this team. You're probably looking at Anaheim's a team up and coming. They got a bunch of young guys, so I'd be okay starting the conversation with Nick Robertson and going from there. This is a go for it year for the Leafs. People got to remember that. Like when Nick Robertson's when Nick Robertson's ready to like lead and control his NHL line, it might be too late. So if you don't have him in the go for it year, then it's not the end of the world. Raquel, the only issue with this is his contract is up at the end of the year, and I don't believe he has signed for next year yet. No, he hasn't. So you would have to maybe do a sign and trade, which could probably bring the price down a little bit, I think, but we'll see there. This year he's making 3.7. Not bad. You could make that work, have money come out one way. You could make that work by just shipping out Kerfoot the other way, right? So, do you look at a trade where it's Raquel for Robertson and Kerfoot? Would Anaheim do that? Is it enough? You never know. Like you see the fluctuation of prices on these trades. Like Vancouver got, Ottawa got Travis Hamonic yesterday for a third.
I think there's more afoot there than that, though. I mean,
there's more there.
Done with the NHL.
I think that's what it would cost. I'd be comfortable with that. It's probably going to cost you a little bit more, though, and maybe Anaheim includes something else as well, just to make money in, money out work. Because NHL GMs like to have cap space, and when they make a trade, they like to have the same money they had before the trade was made.
No, I 100% agree with you. We do have one of our first guests jumping on from Sticks in the Six podcast. Andrew Forbes will be joining us here in just a couple of moments. Pumped to have him on. But I agree with you. This is a go for it year. You definitely have to start spending the assets and get guys in. Let's bring Andrew in and ask him what he thinks about that deal that you're just talking about. Andrew, what's going on? Sticks in the Six podcast representing here.
Morning, gentlemen. How are you guys?
Good. You?
Good.
Getting ready to enjoy the lovely trade day, the holiday that is for the NHL fans.
That's right.
Josh was just saying a player that is of interest to him for the Toronto Maple Leafs to get was Ricardo Raquel. And we're talking about how he would slot in top six. Could be a player of interest for the Toronto Maple Leafs and what it might cost. You look at the Leafs right now today and what they might be able to do. Is that a player you're interested in? Or is there someone that you're looking for offense that may be a better fit than Ricardo Raquel?
I mean, I think Ricardo Raquel has been kind of, attached to the Leafs for some time, a couple of years now that his name's been brought up in conversation. I mean, he's got a relatively decent cap hit. I think he's just under $4 million. He's a free agent after this year. So definitely a guy that could provide a little extra depth to the Leafs, up front. But I heard you, James, saying that it might cost them a little too much, and I think that's what the Leafs are trying to stay away from right now. Is they gave up their second already. They've got a first and a third, and I believe a seventh this year.
Conditional seventh.
Yeah, conditional seventh. So pick wise, they're not really sitting too thick when it comes to that. But I mean, it'd be nice to have a guy like that, especially if you're trying to go on a playoff run. But I think right now there's a few more holes that they need to fill in terms of, get a better depth center. Maybe Blackwell turns out to be a good depth forward. I know he's good with the PK, and but you're probably going to see guys like Engvall. Mikheyev's probably a guy that's on the list right now that could be moved, and I think the Leafs need to shore up their goaltending. I love Shalgren. I love what I've seen so far.
Yep.
But if you really believe that this is going to be your year, you got to start thinking about, adding a piece that's going to get you to the end of the playoffs here. And I don't know if Shalgren's the guy that backs up Campbell when you go into the playoffs.
Okay. I don't think it can be either. Like, how many Jordan Binningtons Jordan Binnington-like stories can there be in the league? We've seen
Listen, gentlemen, hang on 1 second. We got to pump the brakes here for this. The Leafs are due, by the way. Leafs are due to have a goaltender actually pop off for them within their organization. Someone either they sign or someone that they've drafted. Okay, we are long over freaking due.
Yeah, but isn't that guy Jack Campbell?
What's that?
Shouldn't that guy be Jack Campbell?
No, I'm talking about a guy that you've either gone and scouted and brought in by signing or a guy that you've drafted. hit on a goaltender that you've gone and got. Obviously,
Right.
Jack Campbell's a guy that, we've hit on Jack Campbell. Okay, great. But I mean a guy that you've kind of groomed a little bit. And with Shalgren, they definitely done that with the AHL this season. It's a guy that nobody expected really to make the noise he's making right now. That's the point I'm trying to make. The Leafs are due for something to hit outside of, guys that are NHL caliber already.
What about Hari Satari?
I was just going to say I'm actually pretty interested to see what he does, because he was a fourth round pick back in 2008, I believe, for San Jose, and kind of bounced around a lot. And I mean, if you look at his numbers overseas, like his numbers are actually pretty decent, below 220 goals against most years, 910 to 915 save percentage. Some years 922. I believe this year he's got in the KHL 926, I believe, in 38 games. So
which is not easy to do in the KHL.
Yeah, no, and he's like in the KHL, he's been a top end goalie for years. It's about what he can do if he comes back over here to the NHL, and if that's going to play out well for him or not. But I mean, it's an interesting signing, especially after he's won the gold with Finland at the Olympics, and can really add a little bit for the Leafs, maybe depth wise.
All right, so let's ask the question here. I'm going to ask everybody who comes on through the show today. Some great guests lined up. I've got Andrew Forbes on right now from Sticks in the Six podcast. Be sure to follow those guys and check out their show as they go. Petr Mrazek on waivers today for the Toronto Maple Leafs. What is the likelihood? I'm going to ask both of you. Is he going to clear today? Will there be a team taking that $3.8 million cap hit? Or is this just a simple demotion to get the cap number to where they need it for a deal they are going to make after 12 p.m. today?
I think, if it wasn't 3.8, I think you'd see a team take a waiver on him, just because of the whole sample size. He's had a decent career, but 3.8 million for another year. I mean, you'd have to be able to take on that cap space. So if you're a lower end team, maybe Arizona takes a waiver on him. That's a possibility, but I mean, that's a big number to take on for another year. And for what he did with Toronto this year, I mean, he never really found his groove. So I can see it as a demotion, or if the Leafs are able to kind of move him, I think maybe you see them move him, but they're going to have to give up an asset for it.
I could definitely see a team like Arizona taking a flyer. It's probably going to be a bottom tier team who have the cap space to do it. So you're looking at a team that needs a goalie moving forward. Does Arizona need a goalie? Probably not. They have a couple young ones coming up there. Does a team like Ottawa take a look? Probably not either. Like, they have cap space, but they have up and coming goalies. The one team I'm looking at right now and saying, please do this, is the Buffalo Sabres. They've got two goalies who have been okay this year. I don't believe any of them are under contract for next year. And they're going to want a guy who is under contract, under control for at least 2 years, which Mrazek would be, and somebody who can, kind of be a tandem goalie with Craig Anderson if they decide to bring him back. That has been discussed. So does Buffalo run with Mrazek and Anderson next year? That could be something that they could be interested in. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Buffalo maybe kick tires on this guy.
No, I would definitely agree with that. I look at the Petr Mrazek situation. I'll throw my 2 cents in this one. There may be a team that does take him, but it may be a wink, wink, nudge, nudge deal. You look at the things with Arizona with the Carter Hutton situation. Carter Hutton is never going to play with the Toronto Maple Leafs. It was always known that he was going to stay with the Tucson Roadrunners. They want him to go out on his own terms. Got an ankle injury right now. Still trying to work his way back from that. But I think there may be something in place for Arizona to take that. You guys have to remember, not only do they have to hit the cap floor, they have to have guys with term on their deals to play there, because they're going to be playing at ASU. And if you've seen the things that have come out in the past couple of days for the situation going into that, sounds like there's going to be a lot of shenanigans starting the first year with having to shuttle back and forth, trailer showers set up and stuff like that. Nothing going to be ready. It's a joke, but at the same time, if you're Arizona, you got to get guys with term in there. And Petr Mrazek fits that bill for this year, next year, and the year after. And what do we know about goaltenders, guys? A lot of it's between the years. So he goes to a quiet market, reestablishes himself, has a little bit of fun, be able to go and play with young guys coming in a quiet marketplace where you're not getting hounded by the media. I think
in the crowd.
fun. Yeah. Well, you know what? That building's going to be rocking. That building is going to be
It could.
rocking. University students are going to love it. I agree with Craig Morgan that we had on a little while ago from The Athletic, who covers the Arizona Coyotes. That building is going to be bumping. That's going to be a fun time. It's going to be an intimate atmosphere, but just for Petr Mrazek alone, that's going to be a spot where you can go find his game and won't get shelled after the game if he gets questions, from the media. It's going to be one or two guys asking questions, not 15 reporters, 17 podcasts, 18 guys asking him on his way to get a coffee in the morning what happened in the Heritage Classic. That won't happen in Arizona. So that's why I think that's the team that's going to take him.
So I have a question for you guys. Let's say he clears waivers at 2:00. Is it easier to move him because then he wouldn't have to clear waivers again?
No, I would say yes.
Absolutely. It's a contract you can suddenly bury in the minors as well, right? So
maybe that's part of their plan too. Dubas is playing chess, and we're just playing, or we're playing chess, and he's playing chess. Whatever the harder one is, Dubas.
Yesterday showed us all.
He's going for checkmate.
Yes.
Yesterday showed us all things that we didn't know. Did anybody know that at 5:00 the cap kind of resets and gives you a big
what
window?
the hell was that? They're just making that up at this point?
I had no idea that existed. Cap Friendly tried to explain it. There's a bunch of tweets about it where if the Leafs wait till this perfect sun aligns with the moon moment, they get $11 million in magical cap space for an hour, and they have to find their way out of it, which I know the Leafs probably will.
Also, I think the NHL messed up here because I think this might be addressed next year. You guys remember last year that the waiver wire was at noon?
Yep.
Well, now it's 2 p.m. this year. So if this took place last year, the Leafs have a 3-hour window to work with. This year, they only have an hour because the trade deadline time didn't move. It's still 3 p.m. So next year, do we see it move to 5 p.m.?
Here's the fun thing about the 3 p.m. deadline. All you have to do is say your deal is in the pipeline, and we've seen deals trickle in as late as 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Well, yeah, that's because they get stuck in all the ones coming last minute, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, that deal, you never know what could be finessed with that deal through those hours that you're waiting for it to go through, right?
It's lost in the paper pile.
Yeah, it's a loose thing, right? Oh, hey, well, we forgot to put this in there before you process that.
Yeah.
Let's slide this one right in there. But no, there's lots of things. But to watch the Leafs do these different things that no other team seems to do, and then it becomes a copycat thing because the Leafs were the first to create the Robidas Island, the salary cap thing with Lupul and Robidas, and then you've seen teams expand on it like the Tampa Bay Lightning, now the Vegas Golden Knights. So teams follow suit with the Leafs cap gymnastics. So this may be another maneuver where teams are like, all right, we know what we can do here too. Now we're going to be able to do things. So I got a comment here. One issue with Mrazek to Arizona is that he makes more actual money, 4.2 and 4.4 respectively, as a 3.8 cap split for each. Yeah, but here's the thing. I mean, if you sweeten the deal to send Mrazek over there, by the way, MathLover 5K is tweeting over from the YouTube channel. Appreciate you being on there. If you had a sweetener, maybe the 3rd round pick they just got, maybe a prospect. Again, they really need players over there in Arizona. They don't have a whole heck of a lot of them, and nobody's really going to want to go there unless you're a bottom tier guy and you're getting overpaid. That's the simple thick of it right there. But I definitely think that's a team for him.
James, I'm interested to get your opinion on James Reimer being a possibility to come back over to Toronto.
Don't even listen. You just mentioning his name gets me all the warm and fuzzies. I don't have it up behind me. I do have an autographed James Reimer picture. So I'm big on James Reimer. I didn't like the way the Leafs did him when he took us on that run, took us to the playoffs, and then they went and got Jonathan Bernier, which is kind of a slap in the face to him. Hey, you did great, but you're not good enough. We need somebody else, is basically what the Leafs said. So I would love to see it happen. He would be a great backup. But at the same time, maybe the Leafs finally just say, hey, we're going to roll what we got here. We got Shalgren, who may play well, lightning in a bottle. The Leafs are due for it. You got Joe Woll, that's 3-1 this season. All lower cap hits as well. They may just look to use those the cap assets and the things they're going to be trading today to shore up that top 6 and shore up the D a little bit more. But you know what? Would I be sad if the big smile came in back to Toronto with James Reimer? Him and Campbell would be the most positive tandem in the NHL. You couldn't get past them with any negativity. So. No, it'd definitely be good times and sunshine and rainbows there.
Yeah.
I want to ask you: the Leafs obviously may not be done with their defense as of yet. Justin Braun is a player I've been beating the drum for. If you get Philly to retain half, he only ends up being $900K on your cap. He's a guy that can play you 20 minutes a night. No, he's not a top pair guy. Clark Monroe, I know you're listening. He is playing top pair in Philly right now, but he would be better used as a third pair guy. Maybe with a Muzzin, maybe with Labushkin. But what would you think of Justin Braun? Not only the player, but his leadership and the way that he blocks shots and throws hits could definitely be a physical guy for the Toronto Maple Leafs down the stretch and in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely gets interesting when you're talking about the D now because obviously, Justin Hall be the odd man out. You've already got Sandin and Liljegren likely not going to get a lot of playing time. If Muzzin comes back healthy, you've got your 6 now with Gio coming in. I mean, he'd definitely be a good ad if you're looking for a playoff type defenseman because he does play that. He does have those intangibles. He does block shots. He does get into the grimy areas in the corners and in front of the net. He's not afraid to kind of engage a little bit. But I mean, there's a few guys out there like that. Like Sousey's another guy in Seattle, and now we know that there's a decent relationship there between Dubas and Seattle. That maybe they could get something done. He's on my trade board. If you talk to Peter on our show, he still believes that there's a possibility that they go out and find a way to get Chychrun, move some cap space, and bring him in. And I mean, if that's the case, if the Leafs are able to find a way to get Chychrun off of Arizona, I mean, maybe that's part of the deal to get Mrazek over to Arizona, right? Is make it a bigger deal. I do believe that the Leafs still have one big deal in their day before it's all said and done. Because we've said it before. This is the time that they need to push past that first round and really try and get a good solid playoff run in. And the Atlantic is going to be a tough division between the top 3 there: Tampa, Florida, and Toronto. One of them for sure is going to be out in the first round, and I believe all 3 of us don't want to see that be the blue and white.
I don't think it's going to be the blue and white this year. I really don't think it's going to be. I 100% agree with you. There is a big deal of brewing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are, by the way, only a point out of second in the Atlantic. You look at the Boston Bruins; they're 2 points up on them. Both teams with 20 games remaining. Toronto with a game in hand over Tampa. Tampa with a game in hand over Toronto right now. I don't know, man. The Toronto Maple Leafs, to me, this is it. This is it for Kyle Dubas. This is it for Brendan Shanahan. This is it for Brandon Pridham, everybody in that front office. This is it for that core 4 that they have. This is the push. This is the play. This is what's going to happen. I think there is no asset in this organization that is untouchable. I think Robertson's in play, Nemela, Nyes. If you can get the right players, I mean, let's go, because this is it right here. Let's get Leafs Nation back on the bandwagon. Imagine being able to add a Chychrun and then say, hey, you know what? Let's add a JT Miller on top of that. Let's just go full bore. Josh is laughing, but if you can make the cap gymnastics work, let's do it. Here's the big question, boys. Jake Muzzin, is he going to stay on LTIR if a proper deal presents itself where the Toronto Maple Leafs can swing for the fences?
I think we'll get our answer today. I'm serious. I don't think they know what they're going to do with Muzzin right now, because if by 3:01 p.m. hits our time and the Leafs are very, very close to the cap, then yeah, Muzzin stays on LTIR. But if 3:01 hits and they have room to bring him back, then Muzzin probably comes back. Right? Yeah, I think that's the way they're looking at it here, because. And we also got to remember the dude's health. Like, is he ready to come back? They can't just throw him back in. If he is ready, then you go from there. But I don't think we'll have a clear answer until the bell goes.
Yeah, I think they're not going to force him to stay on the LTIR. I think if he's ready to come back, he'll come back. The team would be happy to have him back if he's 100%. I think right now, though, he's got to really consider whether he's 90% or if he's 100%, because if he comes back and he's 90%, takes another hit, you're starting to play with fire, I think. And, you're talking about a possible career-ending injury. But I do think that, there was a source that came out I want to say about a month ago, where they said, it's highly recommended that Jake Muzzin take the remainder of the regular season
I see
to
the same one. Yep.
to sit out, just get to 100%, and come back if he's ready for the playoffs. And I really I do believe that he needs to look at it realistically and say, look, hockey's second nature right now. I need to take the time, with my family and make sure that I'm 100%, because like I said, if he gets one more hit and, it can change the path of his career. And I think he needs to really, really consider that before he comes back prior to the end of the regular season.
No, I 100% agree with you. I've been on the bandwagon with concussion stuff that you need to take all the time you need. And the Leafs did do the right thing actually this year with, taking the time with Jake Muzzin. This past week, Sheldon keeps saying they're going to walk him back. They're going to slow him down. They're going to restart him, so to speak, just to make sure that everything is good. The T's are crossed, the I's are dotted. That is a guy that you want healthy for the playoffs, man, because you look what happens to this team. And maybe adding Giordano and Lyubushkin changes it. But when he goes down in the playoffs, the Leafs defense is completely different without him.
Mm-hmm.
The Leafs, they used this last year for Freddie Anderson and a couple other players, I believe. LTIR conditioning loan. We might see Jake Muzzin play a couple games with the Marlies before he comes back up to the big club, just to see how he looks, just to see how he feels, because you don't want to bring this guy back and then all of a sudden he's not feeling good and you don't have him for the playoffs. So, I just looked up the rules. He does qualify for it. He has to be out for 10 games, 24 days, which he has been. He's got to consent to it, which I'm sure he would. And it has to last for up to 6 days and 3 games, which the Marlies, they play 3 games in 3 days anyway. So that wouldn't be a problem. I could see them doing something like that to see how he's feeling and then make the decision from there afterwards too. And it doesn't affect your cap.
Nope. No, I don't. Yeah,
just get creative.
Well, that's the thing here. That's the thing that people forget about this, and they love it when it's done, or they love it when the Leafs do things like yesterday at that time. With the window for the cap. The Leafs have Brandon Pridham for a reason. He wrote the cap. He knows the loopholes. He knows how to use different things. And it seems like they never use all their tricks all in one year. It seems like every year they have a new trick that they're willing to play and show everybody how to maneuver. And hey, we're not going to show you this right now, but we'll do this year. I think the Leafs, in my heart of hearts, have a blockbuster lined up. And I would not be surprised if there's a regular roster player that has moved today. And one player that really, I'm seeing a lot of, hey, falling out of favor. We still love him, but, maybe it's time for him to find a new home. And that is William H. Nylander. I don't want to see him go, but he is an enigma. Okay, I love Willie Nylander. But Willie Nylander, when he's hot and flying and playing, great player. But the problem is when William Nylander is William Nylander that we see right now, kind of disengaged, not willing to battle physically. You look at him taking that twirl of a hit the other night there, avoiding the hit, just twirling out of the way, opposed to getting in there and blocking that clear out. To me, it's like, okay, can we get a guy that can stay here on term? Hello, JT Miller. That is more tenacious, more willing to battle, willing to do all of these things, and for the same kind of cap hit. And I think you can. I think the answer is you can. The only question is, do you make that deal after promising Willie Nylander that he's not getting traded? That's the only thing I wonder.
Not to be rude, but promises don't mean shit. They don't. If you're trying to win a Stanley Cup, you can promise a guy on Monday that you'll never trade him, and then you can trade him Tuesday morning if it makes your team better. On the other hand, if you're trying to replace William Nylander, you got to find a guy who in 62 games can put up 58 points.
Yeah,
because that's what you're trying to replace with almost a point a game player. So I think it would be kind of difficult to do that, and you're also going to have to find a guy who steps up and plays well in the playoffs. Because let's not forget, William Nylander was really the only forward who showed up last year against Montreal.
100%. I'm throwing it out there, and like I said, I have no problem with Willie Nylander if he stays. I'm just wondering if this is a guy that you dangle as a chip to get a bigger deal in play.
If you're going to dangle him, you better be getting a heck of a haul, because I mean, realistically, like you look
Taylor
at his.
Hall?
Yeah, I'm. You know what? I haven't been sold on Taylor Hall in a long time.
No,
a long time.
Yeah, I made me think of Taylor Hall.
Yeah. Even in Boston this year, he's had a rough go. I wouldn't say he's at the top of his game, but yeah, no, I think like you got to be looking at it a major deal, and it's going to be like Josh said, it's got to be a piece that's going to fill that hole that you leave with William Nylander. I think right now the Leafs' second line is just not as dazzling as they were early on in the season. So people are giving JT a hard time. I mean, here's a guy who's roughly a point a game this season. Nylander again, another guy who's a point a game this season. And realistically, I mean, they've earned the dollars that they're getting. It's just at this time the Leafs have 4 of those players, 5 if you include Riley, that are making that kind of dough, and makes it tough. Makes especially in a market like Toronto. If these guys were playing in any other market and they were averaging a point a game, we're not having this conversation.
All right, so then the thing go ahead, Josh. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I don't think moving William Nylander just before a playoff run is the answer as well. Like, that's such a valuable asset to have. He can be a game changer for you in the playoffs because you can drop him down to the third line, which would just wreak havoc on any other team because your third line's already so strong, and you plop Nylander there and to chew up the other team's third line. He can, move to center if you have to. God forbid that we don't do that again, but if you had to do it, you could. And also, I got a question for you guys. Is this second line looking so underwhelming because the first line has just been out of this world? Could that be a part of it?
Thing. I mean, I liked it better seeing John Tavares with Mitch Marner again, but no, you might be right. That first line is just such a dynamo line that anything else below that really is not really that.
Yeah.
Guys are point per game guys, and we're like, maybe they can be moved. But yeah, no.
Why aren't you 2 points per game?
Don't forget too, you got Michael Bunting, who's just below a point a game at 900,000. So that makes it look a little bit tougher on these guys in the second line doing the exact same thing for 11 million.
Yeah, no, definitely it is. We have a comment over here from Math Lover. He's been all over this all day long. Here's a crazy idea that'll never happen. Nylander is a centerpiece for a retained Patrick Kane. It'll never happen, but would fit in the all-in vibe, and it would be a fit with JT like a dream. Yeah, wow. Could you
Screw
imagine?
it, I'm adding it to my list.
Could you imagine a Patty Kane deal to the Maple Leafs? That would just be absolutely
throw in DeBrincat too. Let's go.
Yeah.
Toss Fleury in there too, boys. We need Fleury. We need something on the back end. Let's roll.
If you could get okay. Realistically, it's trade deadline day. We're killing time. If you could get Kane, DeBrincat, and Fleury, and the trade starts with Nylander, what else do you have to toss in?
Oh, way too much. Way too much.
It
wouldn't even be a thing you could do there. It would be Nylander plus a plethora of picks, plus
at least two firsts over the next 2 years, at least. Probably Matthew Nyes.
I'll add this. You're guaranteed a cup.
Well, if you're guaranteed a cup, you push everything to the center and say, let's roll. If there was a way to know that you were guaranteed the Stanley Cup, teams would just say, yep, I'm in. Don't even worry about it. I will suffer for the next 10 years to live off that cup for 20.
Yeah.
That's exactly what would happen in Toronto. Toronto wins one Stanley Cup. That carries them for 20 years. 20 years of bragging rights.
20. The one we won 52 years ago is still carrying us.
Yeah, well, we'll talk modern.
In every comment section, in every article written by the Toronto Maple Leafs, that's what it's carrying us right now. Yeah. 1967. That's all I think we hear over at the Hockey Writer. So
it's insane, absolutely insane. Well, Andrew, I want to thank you very much for joining us here on Trade Deadline Day. All right, before I let you go today, what is your one trade the Toronto Maple Leafs definitely make, and who is it? Why?
I'd like to see Jacob Chychrun come over. I really do. I was on the Geo train about a month ago. I wrote an article about how the Leafs need to go out and get him. They went out and got him. I will now answer to the outside insider. I would love to see Jacob Chychrun come over. I think that's the last piece that you need on that back end. I don't think you need to go all out to find a depth forward. I think you've got the pieces in place up front. It's a matter of getting those D in front of him in front of Jack Campbell to play hard. He's going to get his confidence back and come back 100%. And let's go on a playoff run here. Let's go on a playoff run. Let's get Chychrun and let's make it happen.
Well, let's make it happen. When the playoffs do get coming around, we have to do some sort of 6-in-6 offside mashup. Just have a great big show.
Absolutely.
For everybody and have a celebratory, let's go into the first round on a high note here. But Andrew, thank you for taking the time, carving out some niche for us today. Look forward to trade deadline day wrapping up, and look forward to your articles. Where can everybody find you and the show across the mediums?
You can find myself on Twitter at Andrew G. Forbes. You can follow the show at Sticks in the Six Pod. That's STIXINTHE 6IXPOD. We have an episode every week, and we got a lot of big news coming our way. So definitely check us out. We're on Instagram as well. So we're trying to get into the TikTok world, but not yet. We're trying to figure it all out. So
not to worry, man.
The ruthless world.
Yeah.
All right, well, guys, this is Andrew Forbes here. So if you're on our TikTok live right now, or YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter right now, make sure you follow them along and check out everything they put out. Cheers to you, my friend. See you later.
Cheers. Enjoy, boys.
Thanks, bud.
All right, so that was Andrew Forbes from Sticks and Six, as you heard. Man, lots of great chat there. We do have a couple other guests coming up here. We have Zach Lang, who covers the Edmonton Oilers. For Oilers Nation, we do have Arthur Staple of The Athletic, who covers the New York Islanders and the New York Rangers. Clark Monroe is stopping by. And, of course, there may be other guests dropping in throughout the day if time does allow. Yeah, man, I'm all in. I think the Leafs are all in. It's going to be exciting to see what they can and cannot do today. Man, I just can't get out of my head that the Patrick Kane thing. Just how amazing would that be? To run out John Tavares, Patty Kane, and Willie Nylander, your top line that's rolling of Bunting, Marner, and Matthews. Holy smokes. And the defense corps that we have.
Now that I think about it, like, if you could get Patrick Kane, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, they already told, I guess Patrick Kane said he doesn't want to be traded, and they already said that he's not being traded. So,
see, I thought he wanted out, or was that Taves?
I think it's Taves that wants out. I think both players are eventually going to be wanting out of the Chicago Blackhawks. I just think that it's going to be, sadly, in the off season where they can get more and do more, and more teams are open and available and ready to do that.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't. Yeah, so much is going to happen today between 2 and 3 p.m., and we're just kind of all waiting for it to collapse. I think once we see the first trade happen today, everything's going to. I
think the teams are just waiting right now. I mean, we just want to see it happen. We want to see some moves happen. In Saskatchewan. What time is it in Saskatchewan?
It's like 5:51 there, I think.
No.
Sask time. Nailed it. 6:51.
Bam. All right.
I said 5:51.
Clark Monroe is jumping on the show here at 7:30 his time, so 10:30 our time, 9:30 Eastern. All different time zones coming into play today.
Did you get my Twitter message? I have to step out for 15 minutes at 9:55.
Yeah, no problem. I'll hold down the old Ford ski here.
And what's the we have a very important issue to address here.
Yo.
Bathroom breaks.
Just when you gotta go, you go, bro.
Okay.
David Pagnotta just said John Gibson's name is being discussed in trade talks. No mention of the Leafs, but something interesting, more realistic than Kane for sure. I don't think John Gibson becoming a Toronto Maple Leaf. I don't think the Leafs use their bullets here today to go and get a goaltender. I just don't. If they do, it's nothing but depth. I think they really want Satari to come in and see what they got with him. I really think that you'll still see Shalgren going forward as well. But yeah.
Can we discuss this Satari situation? Because I think it's kind of ridiculous. He has to clear waivers. So, because realistically, he could sign with an NHL team. He clearly wants to play in Toronto, but a team like freaking, what if Dallas came in and was like, actually, we'll take this guy. Then he has to go play in Dallas. He didn't sign there.
No, he doesn't really have to. He could say no.
But then he doesn't get to play in the NHL, right? Like, it just seems kind of a silly rule.
It's counterintuitive for sure.
I think we'll see some changes to that for sure.
There might be something that comes up during the Board of Governor meeting for sure. Lots of players out there right now that the Toronto Maple Leafs are linked to that could be coming in. I don't know, man. I'm looking at Andrew Cobb. Let's go back to your list here as we wait for our next illustrious guest to join us. We talked about Ricardo Raquel with Andrew and yourself. Let me just jump back over here. be able to jump in and see your thing. Ba-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da. Marc-Andre Fleury, we talked about him a little bit. Zdeno Chara. Zdeno Chara, to me, is a player that, yes, the Toronto Maple Leafs could be interested in. I said this the other night on the live.
He's on my list.
I said this to Clark Monroe the other night. You know, the thing with the Zdeno Chara is Lou Lamoriello is not going to, in any way, shape, or form, help the Toronto Maple Leafs with a trade. So he is obviously going to be asking for way too much, and Kyle Dubas is not going to want to pay whatever the ask is there to get that player.
I agree. I'm just seeing a report here that there is a big sense in the league that Peter Mrazek will get claimed because teams have kicked tires on him this year, and seeing that he's eligible for free would drive that desire even higher. So even if he's not claimed, like we mentioned earlier, that hour from 2 to 3 does make it easier to trade him. So I think we have seen the end of Peter Mrazek. And then it goes on to say that some names the Leafs might be also kicking tires on. And I'm going to save one of these for last because I think it'd be very interesting. Andrew Copp from Winnipeg, Arturi Lehkonen from Montreal, Dominic Kubalik from Chicago, Maxime Comtois from Anaheim, which would be awesome.
Yeah,
and finally,
all in on that
Connor
one.
Brown from Ottawa.
I would take Connor Brown. Downtown Connor Brown again. Let's go.
Bring him back. Give
Familiarity.
him a second chance.
Let's get the band back together, boys.
And how much would that just be? And I'm sure the locker room's in a fantastic place right now. Like they're 5th in the NHL, 3rd in their division, which is ridiculous to say out loud. But imagine you bring back Connor Brown, who was just loved by the boys. Like he just comes into the locker room Tuesday morning, like I'm back, and then it's just like, oh shit, Connor's here.
By God,
right? It'd be sick.
God, it's Connor Brown.
Oh well. We can all dream, but nothing will probably. I can see Comtois coming here too. And Troy Terry.
Comtois would be definitely fun, buddy. We have Arthur Staple joining us in about 5 minutes' time. Lots going on.
Go to the bathroom now, then, so I'm not rude to him.
No problem. I'll hold the fort here while we go. Ladies and gentlemen, across the streams, we are live on TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. This is Offside Hockey Talks, presented by Boxing Rock Brewing Co.'s 2022 trade deadline show. We had Andrew Forbes on from Sticks in the Six. We're breaking down the trades as they happen, breaking down the trades around different markets. We'll have Zach Lang on, who covers the Edmonton Oilers, Clark Monroe about the Toronto Maple Leafs. We just had Andrew Forbes, we mentioned. And, of course, we will be having the big piece, Arthur Staple, stop by to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs, the New York Islanders, and the New York Rangers, what both those teams may be doing and how it may impact the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Atlantic Division, definitely making moves, definitely building up. We got great comments going on over here on the YouTube stream with MathLover5K. Appreciate you dropping in. The stream is live at in about 5 minutes' time. Arthur Staple will be joining us to speak about the New York Islanders, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the New York Rangers, and how it all will shake out. Appreciate everybody being here, jumping on, having a good time. If you're in one of the lives, make sure you drop a comment, drop a follow, drop a like, whatever it is that you are watching on, and let us know you're here. We definitely appreciate it. Oh. Big time, big day for the NHL, obviously trade deadline day. The Leafs making a big splash already, getting Mark Giordano, but not spending any of their big assets to do so. Absolutely amazing, which leaves you to believe that there will be a deal today where the Toronto Maple Leafs do spend their capital and get something big to come back on the other side. Cannot wait to see what that is. Shout out to TikTok. Haven't got to interact too much over on that side as of yet. Appreciate everyone being there. If you're in the stream, tap the likes. If you're over on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your dog. This is a fun trade deadline show, a little different than everybody else has going on. We're interactive. We're talking to everybody. We're having a great time. So let's rock and let's roll. The Leafs have some belief that Petr Mrazek may be claimed across the league here, which is great. Also, if he does end up clearing waivers, we talked about the fact it will be easier to deal Petr Mrazek, as he will not have to clear waivers if the team wants to send him down. Some possibilities are the Arizona Coyotes, who need warm bodies to play in that new building for ASU they'll be in, and he is under contract for 3 more seasons. that allows you to have some flexibility with a player that is going to be on your roster. Look at the deal. Blackwell is a player that can penalty kill, can be physical, likes to get chirpy and beaky with guys, which the Leafs kind of need, but there's a lot of different things out there that right now are shaking out that we can get something going on. David Pagnotta talking about John Gibson maybe on the move from Arizona, from Anaheim. That is a huge thing. It would be a huge piece for a team to add a player as such. Cannot wait to speak with Arthur Staple to see what he thinks the Rangers and the Islanders will do. If maybe there's a deal to be had between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the New York Islanders. Who are you guys looking for to get traded? Drop a comment in one of the feeds here, whether you're on TikTok, Twitter, or Twitch, whether you're on the TikTok stream here or YouTube. Love it. Arthur Staple will be joining us here in a couple of moments. I do see him just hopping in. We'll let him get settled in and ready. Cannot wait to see what's happening here.
Can I give I'd like to give a shout out.
Give a shout out quick before we get Arthur in. Yep.
I'd like to give a big shout out to my wife who left for work at 8:30, and so I wasn't sure what she was doing because I was on here. And I just went into the bedroom and she had left me a 6-pack of beer on the bed saying, "Have fun today."
Oh, there you go. Well, there you go. Shout out to the better half. Shout out to Mrs. Egan. Let's go.
So now we need to put up a poll asking what an appropriate time to open the first beer is.
All right. We are joined by the man, the myth, the legend that is Arthur Staple, covering the New York Islanders and the New York Rangers. This is Offsides coverage of NHL Trade Day 2022. Arthur, how's it going today?
I'm good, fellas. How you doing?
We're good. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be here while it's nice and quiet.
Yeah, nothing's broken yet today. What's it like for you? Give us a peek behind the curtain for you today. Obviously, you cover the Rangers and the Islanders, so that's a double duty. What's it like on trade deadline day for a person covering a team?
It's a little easier than it was when I first started out. You just sit by your laptop and your phone and check Twitter and watch the Trade Center show and hear from people in the league and communicate with them and wait for your team to do something. It's a little easier than it used to be sitting at the rink and waiting for the word to come down the hallway. But yeah, it can be quiet for a while and then a big burst of energy when something does happen. And I'm anticipating that there'll be at least a few things happening around here today.
Oh, I definitely think there'll be something happening. Let's start with you with the New York Islanders and ask you right out of the gate. Do you see them being active in moving players today? I know Mayfield's been bantied about. Zdeno Chara obviously probably wants one more kick at the can if he wants to move. Varlamov is another player as well. Do you see Lou doing anything today to help out some of his NHL counterparts across the league? We want Chara over here in the Leafs, but I don't think he'll be too happy to help the Toronto Maple Leafs too much.
I really feel like if anybody moves, it'd be Andy Green. That's really the only one I could see. I know him and Cal Clutterbuck were scratched yesterday, and I was a bit surprised to see on Clutterbuck, but I was assured by some people outside the team that it really was a maintenance day. It just doesn't seem like he's the kind of guy that's going to just try to go chase it somewhere else. He's been an Islander for 9 years, put down a lot of roots on the island. He could definitely help some teams, and I'm sure that Lewis fielded some calls on him, but I imagine that they want to bring him back for another year. And I really do get the sense that the Islanders aren't going to change a whole lot going into next season. They feel like the circumstances of this year, with starting the year on the 13-game road trip, getting hammered by COVID and having to play through it for about 3 weeks before they got to shut down, and then the crazy schedule that they've had trying to catch up in games to everybody else has really taken its toll. And they've shown some flashes over the last month or two that the core can still be pretty viable, and whether or not the fans agree with that is up for debate. But I have a sneaking suspicion that the guys that would bring back the biggest return today, guys like Mayfield or Varlamov, are definitely going to stay put. And as far as their rentals go, like I said, I think Andy Green may be the only one who, turning 40 in a few months, may want to go chase a ring somewhere local, mostly because his family's stayed local all the way through his time in Jersey and on the island. And as for guys like Chara and Zach Parise, I think Parise is coming back for another year with the Islanders. They really like what he's brought to the team. And Chara, there could be a request there to try to go somewhere. but I think anybody who's watched him play this year probably knows that if you're picking him up, it's going to be for cheap and probably not going to be a guy that you're going to use every day. He just, he's 45 years old. I can certainly understand. I was 45 a couple years ago, and it's hard to get out of bed every day, much less play 20 minutes a night in the NHL. So I think the Islanders are going to be pretty quiet today.
All right. Well, we'll talk about the Andy Green situation then. For that type of player, is there a team that he could really suit well to suit up with? First team that comes to mind for me is maybe a team that's kind of clunkering right now. Maybe the Vegas Golden Knights go and pick up that guy on the cheap. What would you say for Andy Green as a location that he could really probably apply his trade?
I think common sense kind of says it's the other team that I cover, the Rangers. Like I said, he's a guy who stayed local. That was part of the reason he waived his no trade to go from Jersey to the island. He liked it so much on the island, he re-upped for another couple of go rounds. And he's had 2 trips to the conference final. And really, of the teams in the local area around here, the Rangers are the only ones that are really headed to the playoffs and could use a lefty who's got some experience, who's got the sort of character attitude that Green brings. The Rangers are a very young group on defense, and Green can still play a little bit. I'm sure that they're exploring more useful options before 3 p.m. But if you start striking out on things, they might turn to a Ranger Islander trade, which I don't think we've seen. I think in about 20 years, we haven't seen one of those. So that would spice things up a little bit, even if it was only Andy Green for a mid-round pick. But yeah, as far as some other teams, I wonder about whether Pittsburgh could use a guy like Green, just someone you can spot in. The Penguins have added guys like that for stretch runs over the years. I'm not so sure he'd be willing to go out west even for a couple of months to try to run it up for one go around. Maybe if it's Colorado that comes calling, you say yes, or even Calgary. But I feel like there's a couple of fits, but I think it'll have to be right. And Lou has enough respect for Andy Green, having brought him into Jersey and had him on his team for many years, that he'd try to do right by him and send him somewhere that Green would want to go.
No, that's a good thing about Lou. He definitely does have that kind of honor code for players. You touched on them, so let's talk about them. The New York Rangers, I wouldn't say surprise, but obviously a team that is on the upswing, definitely wants to add. And for you look at that team, what do they need to, I guess, go deep into the playoffs? What is the one thing you say, okay, you look at the Rangers and say, okay, this right here could be the thing that's the hitch and the giddy up going through the playoffs?
They need a forward. They need a right wing. Whether Andrew Kopp is not a right shot guy, but basically right wing is probably their top priority, and just in general more skill in their top 9 and just overall slotting guys into their proper spots. They won 2 big games against potential playoff opponents over the weekend in Tampa and Carolina, and the Carolina game was just kind of the Hurricanes threw everything they had at them yesterday, and Alexander Georgiev played out of his mind. And the Rangers did not play well and still won. And that's kind of been the theme of the season. It seems like every night Gerard Gallant, or one of the veterans on the team, is apologizing for a win that they've gotten because Igor Shesterkin stood on his head, or Georgiev stood on his head, or they got a late goal, or managed to pull out a win that maybe they didn't deserve by the numbers. So I think just they've been kind of playing a bit of a shell game with their forwards. Capo Caco's been out for a while. Kevin Rooney, who's been an effective 4th liner, has been out for a while. There's no timetable for either of those guys to return. They went out and got Frank Vetrano last week, and he's helped a bit in their top 6. And there are some guys out there that can help them, and I really think even if it's not a big splash like a JT Miller, who's a guy they've been trying to get for a while, or Philip Forsberg, Patrick Kane, big name guys that may or may not be on the move, that I'm sure that they've had some conversations about. Even just getting a mid-level guy that you can put in your top 6 will slot them in a lot better. They really, they've been running with Dryden Hunt, who's a journeyman guy on their second line for a lot of the season. The third line's been a complete no-show. They've had guys like Julien Gauthier playing there a lot. And really, Gauthier and Hunt are more tweener type AHL, NHL guys that you don't really need in your lineup every night, and it's hard to be successful with them. So I think that's their main focus today, and I'm sure that they're going to come away with at least one guy to add to what they got with Vetrano. And depending on how Kako's situation hasn't really been revealed. It was seemingly something minor. He's been out for 2 months now, so if he's not even coming back by the end of the season, maybe they think about adding another forward just to make the bench a little bit deeper.
Wow. Okay. And there's lots of players out there that would fit that bill. Obviously, you mentioned Cop. Maybe a player that's unhappy in Boston, and Jake DeBrusk might be a guy they look at as well. For me, I look at the New York Rangers and say they're a scary team. If Shesterkin's on, you're not beating Shesterkin. We talked about this when you were on earlier in the season, and the Toronto Maple Leafs trying to put puck past him. It just when he starts to feel it, I mean, they may apologize for the fact that he's standing on his head, but when he stands on his head, that New York Ranger team is a formidable foe that could go all the way. I'm looking forward to seeing them play, just not the Leafs in the playoffs. And to speak of the Leafs, I got to ask you, lots of things swirling around them. They picked up Mark Giordano and Blackwell. They put Mrazek on waivers. What are you hearing about Petr Mrazek? We've seen a couple tweets that there is interest around the league of A, either him being claimed, or B, a trade happening after he clears waivers. Is there any indication on your end that you've heard things?
That would be a bit of a stretch given the guys that are available for teams in net. Whether maybe it's a team that's out of the playoffs that might just want to take a flyer on him. He's been a guy who's been good over the years, and maybe you have him for next year. But I would imagine that's not a situation that anybody's going to do the Leafs any favors on. It certainly seems like they're preparing for Jack Campbell to come back. Eric Källgren's going to be their backup when that happens, and they're going to, as they've done the last couple of years with Freddie Anderson, they're going to kind of run with what they've got. I know it's disappointing for Leafs fans to hear, but that there's just not a lot of scenarios that make sense. Maybe if Chicago comes off the first round ask on Marc-Andre Fleury as we get close to 3:00 today, that becomes more of a consideration. And you certainly know, as a fan, there may be some disappointment or frustration with what the Leafs do, but you certainly know that Brendan Shanahan and Kyle Dubas are ready to make a move if it's available to them. They certainly have never shown any hesitation or caution about doing that, and the Giordano move, with lots of other corresponding moves to make it work, shows that. And I think Blackwell's kind of a good sneaky add too. He was with the Rangers last year, played some top six with them. Kind of a pain in the ass type player. He can move around your lineup. And the Leafs have a few more guys like that than they've had in years past, I think, which is going to help them in terms of their depth. They don't have a lot of the flashy names, but really the thing that's killed Toronto, I think, in the playoffs is not being able to match the 3 or 4 line abilities of teams like the Bruins, or now teams like Tampa, if that's going to be the likely 2-3 matchup, if the Leafs can hold on to third place there. You want to be able to roll your lines a little bit better than the Leafs have done in the playoffs the last few years, and having a guy like Blackwell, and maybe there's another guy out there that they can add before 3 p.m. just to kind of add to the rotation with guys like Kampf and Engvall and guys that have had Mikheyev, guys that have had good years in lesser roles. You really tend to forget about those guys when you have the big names, but you do need them come playoff time.
Well, I'll ask you this, Arthur, for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Is there a name that you think would fit in that bottom 6 that's a good one out there? Obviously, Kopp is the big happy name that everybody's kind of attaching the Leafs to. I look at this too, and I say, even though you're adding and bringing guys in, it does spell time less for guys like Spezza and Simmons and Clifford, guys that you brought in for that kind of role. But obviously, they're looking to upgrade on that, and you look to upgrade anytime during the trade deadline. But is there a name that you think would better suit the Leafs? And I have a second question after that one.
Tyler Mott is kind of the main guy, I think, that everybody's been talking about, whether Vancouver decides they want to keep him. He's a guy that you just want guys where the motor's really high, and he's got that, and he's got some skill. It's going to cost them, and obviously giving up seconds this year and next in the Giordano deal kind of reduces your mid-range pick asset group, and maybe there's a way to make that work with a player or prospect that's kind of a B minus level guy in your system that's not quite going to break through because you're adding so many of these depth guys. But really, for me, if Tyler Mott's still out there and it's 250 or 255 and you're the Leafs and you haven't really done anything significant today, maybe that's a guy where you say, these are the kind of guys we can't get enough of. Yes, it's great to have Simmons, it's great to have Spezza, but when you can get a guy who's a decade younger than those guys and fill the same sort of role, you probably want to do it.
Definitely. The second question I have there is the Toronto Maple Leafs obviously addressing their defense this year. The Lyubushkin trade, physical defenseman. can block shots, do different things that the Leafs didn't have, kind of a Jake Muzzin light, very light. And then you get Mark Giordano, a guy who has familiarity with TJ Brody. Wondering for you, are the Leafs done, do you think, on defense, given the fact that they have Hall in the wings, Liljegren's there, Sandin, you name it, did ship Dermott out for that third-round pick? Does that spell the Leafs being done there, or do you see them maybe going after a Justin Braun or maybe a Kulak or something like that as a bigger swing?
I think it depends on the price. If one of those guys is sitting there at the end of the day, and you can get him for something that's not going to break the bank, nothing above a third round pick, I would say, which might be hard to come by given what teams are asking for on the defense, especially even the rentals. I think they can go forward with what they've got. You don't want to get too caught up in changing things up that drastically in the middle of the season. That, even though there's been some ups and downs, is going pretty well, and they are going to make the playoffs again, and they are going to, have to face a daunting first round opponent because that's just the way the division looks these days. So I don't know if you want to start tinkering too much, but I am curious to see how it works with Giordano. Maybe they can slot things in a little better. Maybe you don't need to rely on Sandin. Obviously, trading Dermott, is a relief for him and for a lot of people. It was a move that they were trying to make for months, and that can weigh on a team too when you've got a guy who's in and out of the lineup who doesn't want to be there, and the team doesn't want him there. So I'm curious to see what they do. If there's a hockey trade to be made, if they were, say, to move out Justin Hall and bring in somebody that's equal replacement to him or a little bit above, maybe you try to do that. But again, I'd be a little bit wary of changing too much, just because you do have a team that is going pretty well, and you don't want to tinker that much.
No, they are definitely rolling, and I'm looking forward to getting Jack Campbell back into this lineup as well. Obviously, a starting goaltender. What have you thought so far about the deals that have happened? I want to ask you specifically about the Mark Giordano deal. The Leafs did not give up a top prospect. They did not give up their first round pick, a couple of seconds and a third in which they just got back and trading Travis Dermott. Wondering for you, did Dubas do well on that deal, considering the prices that have been out there so far for trades for defensemen and even for forwards, for that matter?
Yeah, I think it's a good deal. The Rangers were a team, I think that was probably the team that they beat out for Giordano, and I'm sure where Giordano wanted to go played a little bit of a role. It certainly seemed like he wanted to go back to Toronto to play at home and give that a shot. Whether he can stick around beyond this season, I don't know if that's a question for now, but he clearly wanted to go back to Toronto and try to play for his hometown team. So, maybe that was it. They were able to kind of get, keep a little bit more of their assets in that regard once Giordano chose that destination. But I think it's a good deal when it's becoming more acceptable to trade future picks instead of it being you got to trade every pick that you trade has to be this year. That kind of seemed to be the way it went, and I think we're kind of moving into that NBA territory where teams are understanding that even if it's a second next year or in 2 years, still a second round pick, and that'll be valuable to them. So I think the creativity was there to get that done, and obviously, they had to wait until after 5 to announce it to make the salary cap situation work. There's so much that goes into it with a team like the Leafs that's up against it with LTIR and the cap. You give them some credit for being able to navigate those waters, and like I said, a team like Seattle is looking to make as many individual trades as they can to bring back assets. So you have to try to entice them to throw in a guy like Blackwell too, and a third in 2024. Like you said, they got a third back for Dermott, so that could allow them to give up a third in a couple of years. In a couple of years, you can get a third back, I'm sure, for somebody else. So it's good asset management. If Seattle was stuck on getting a first, trading a second this year and a second next year is pretty equal value, because with the Leafs it's going to be a pick that's down in the 50s or 60s. So I don't mind that deal. It leaves you with the option of trading your first if something great comes along today, or the rare situation the Leafs may actually keep their first round pick and make one on the floor that Friday night in Montreal in a couple of months.
Yeah, that may play a big factor into it. the Toronto Maple Leafs obviously have a thing to do here too with Jake Muzzin. Wondering for you, in your honest opinion, do the Toronto Maple Leafs keep him on LTIR, not only because of the fact that of the concussion situation, but obviously they may want to make a deal. Josh seems to think this may be one of the things that you do not see until the Leafs have a deal on the table where they have to say, hey, are we going to put him on LTIR and let him rest and get that concussion symptoms down and then come back for the playoffs, or the deal doesn't materialize and you can take Muzzin? Do you think Muzzin goes on LTIR and stays there?
I think the problem for the Leafs is that if he's healthy, you need him. And, when the Lightning do something like that with Nikita Kucherov, I think they're gambling that they're not going to need Nikita Kucherov until playoff time. And obviously that worked out for them. The Panthers are going to be in the same situation with Aaron Ekblad, although clearly his injury is bad enough that he's going to be out at least until close to the end of the regular season. So you don't need to risk that. And that's not a situation where they have a choice. But if you have a choice, it is a difficult one. But I think for the Leafs, do you risk holding him out, keeping him healthy to the playoffs, and then by the time you get there, are you the last wild card team? And suddenly you got to face Carolina maybe in the first round, which is not a situation you want. It's a real gamble, and especially with head injuries. Muzzin might be feeling fine now and takes a knock, or gets a big hit in 2 or 3 weeks, and suddenly you're back to square one, and that's a difficult situation to see and think about. But I'm curious to see how they handle it going forward. I imagine that if he's healthy, they want to keep him off LTIR so he can play because, frankly, he makes their decor better, and that's probably the ultimate guide for Shanahan and Dubas on that front.
Yeah, no, I'm fully on board with that. Yeah, we have Arthur Staple on right now, by the way, everyone. Covers the New York Rangers and the New York Islanders. The other deals that we watched go on today, or throughout the week, is one that really perplexed me. That was the Brandon Hagel deal with Tampa and Chicago. Want to ask your opinion on that one. It seemed like a pretty steep price to pay for him. I know he is under control for a couple more seasons, but that is a pretty steep price to pay for a player that they're looking to be the next, I guess, Blake Coleman, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a big price to pay, but you've got a guy who's cost controlled, 1.5 for the next 2 years, and for a team like Tampa that has to work within certain parameters because they are, again, much like the Leafs and a lot of other elite teams, in LTIR, tight to the cap every year. Off-season decisions are really dictated a lot by how the cap works. It's worth it for them to trade those 2 future firsts. When you win 2 Stanley Cups and you still got a lot of your core in their prime, and certainly the most important guy of their core who's in their prime is Andrei Vasilevsky. And like we were talking about with the Rangers and Shesterkin, when you've got one of the 2 or 3 best goalies in the league, you can make gambles like that every year because you know that your goalie gives you a chance to win every night. And certainly with guys like Hedman, McDonough, defense is difficult to come by, and those 2 guys are still in their prime, but kind of getting to the far edge of their prime. This is the window to win for Tampa, and they've got an owner who's willing to sacrifice futures to win now. And you are going to end up paying the piper at some point, but if you do it after winning 3 straight Stanley Cups, I think it feels okay. So I don't mind that deal for them. I think the part that you kind of raise your eyebrow at a little bit is, what is Chicago doing? And if you're into a rebuild, you're probably looking to unload guys that are either pending UFAs or they're big name, big ticket guys like Kane and Jonathan Taves. Getting rid of a guy who costs you almost nothing, who's come out of nowhere to be a productive guy for you. I think that's where you have to question what's Chicago up to. And do they have a strategy here to kind of get out of the situation that they've been in? And it's entirely of their own making. Again, a situation, like Tampa, where they've had incredible success and good on them, sacrificing the future for the present to win 3 Stanley Cups in 5 years. But the last one was 7 years ago now. And they really haven't progressed at all in terms of retooling or rebuilding or whatever you want to call it. And then on top of it, you have a franchise that is rightly in everybody's bad graces, and the Kyle Beach situation, and a franchise that needs a complete makeover, and they go out and do kind of a phony GM search and promote their guy from within and don't change a whole lot and have a cantankerous owner who shoots his mouth off in public. you take all of that stuff and it's
Yeah.
bad, and then on top of it, you add a trade where you say, "What are these guys up to on the ice?" They're in a situation where I don't know. By the offseason, I imagine Jonathan Taves, spoke out, I think, to our Mark Lazarus not long ago, saying, "I don't know what direction we're going in." I don't know if Taves has a lot of value, but Patrick Kane could really have some value for someone on the last year of his deal next year. And if that's a guy who asks out and doesn't want to be part of what they're doing, I don't know. I wouldn't want to be a Hawk season ticket holder going forward because there's not a lot to like there.
Yeah, well, the Patrick Kane thing is a big one because we had one comment in here. Obviously, it'd be fun to see him move this deadline. I think they poo-pooed that already. He's not going anywhere until the off season. But yeah, they're really tearing it down over there. That's a team that nobody's gonna do any favors for either, though. I think really they're gonna have to hunker down and get good deals for the players that they're going to move. But wow, that's a team that's kind of in turmoil on and off the ice. And a player that I want to know your opinion on, Marc-Andre Fleury, been bantied about not only with the Leafs but across the league as a goalie that may be on the move. Do you see him being moved before trade deadline, or is he staying in Chicago to finish out the season?
I guess it depends if they come off this ask of a first round pick, and if Fleury decides he doesn't want to be a part of it either, maybe he kind of forces their hand and they say, "All right, well, we'll take a second, or we'll take a second and a prospect." It seems like Minnesota's in there digging. I'm not really sure what that does for them, just because they've got to get through Colorado, they've got to get through Calgary. I don't know if Minnesota has the horses, even with Marc-Andre Fleury in that, to do that, but. I'd be curious to see if the ask goes down, whether his old team in Pittsburgh circles back around and tries to make a last ditch effort to bring him in. Vegas, again, another former team that seems like they could use a goalie, although I don't know if they're going to be in full buy mode, considering they're really struggling right now. But yeah, I think you could see him move at the end of the day. Chicago, the idea of holding on to him just to hold on to him and say we're only going to trade him if we're going to get a first is ridiculous. Chicago, like we were just talking about, they're going nowhere. Franchise is completely in the sewer because of what they've done to themselves with the Kyle Beach situation. They made a trade that angered a lot of the guys in the room in Hagel. So might as well just have the fire sale sign out and see what you can get for everybody.
No, I 100% agree with that. I think Fleury, I don't know. I think he would welcome a trade. Going back to the Pittsburgh Penguins would be something that we probably would always like to see. I don't know. I don't know if the warm and fuzzies are there with the Vegas Golden Knights after how everything was handled with him exiting the organization last year. I don't see that being something maybe he wants to revisit right now, especially where the Vegas Golden Knights are. They may not actually have the best chance of even making the dance, so to speak. One last guy I want to ask you about before we let you go, Arthur, is Jakob Chychrun out of the Arizona Coyotes. Obviously had the injury, but is highly, highly sought after by many, many teams. Does he stay in Arizona until at least either the draft or the summer?
I'd be curious to see how that goes. Boston was hot for him, it sounded like, and they obviously went for Hampus Lindholm and decided to commit to him long term. To me, the Kings are really the only team that has the assets to make that work and the interest to make it work. I had heard a couple months ago when Chychrun's name first came on the market that they were looking to move him out of the West. I don't really know why Arizona would care. You just want to get the best deal you can. So if the Kings are ready to pony up, maybe that happens before 3 p.m. today. But maybe more likely it happens in the summer. And again, Arizona is in a situation where, common sense says to you, why are you even giving up a Jakob Chychrun who's cost controlled for a few years, is a good player for you, is a young guy. What does that say to guys like Clayton Keller that have committed to this franchise? And they got their crazy arena situation coming up starting in a couple next season. So not a great situation in Arizona. And I would imagine if you're LA, you're trying to buy as low as you can on Chychrun right now before the deadline and take advantage of their seeming desire to tear down even the little stuff that they've built up so far. So we'll see if anybody blinks on that one before 3. But that's really my kind of main takeaway. I know the Rangers were kind of linked to him a couple months ago. Ranger people were telling me there's no chance, and it really didn't make a lot of sense for the Rangers because they're pretty set on the left side as far as their young guys are concerned. The Islanders were a team that I thought if they managed to get back in it would have a lot of interest in Chychrun. They have a big hole on the left side behind Adam Pelech. They are in cap hell as like everybody else, even though the team's been unsuccessful this year. So, maybe Lou is going to be stealth and plan for the future and feel like he can sneak in there before 3 p.m. If there's a GM who works stealth mode better than Lou Lamoriello, I don't know if he's out there. So maybe that's one to kind of keep on the back burner, that maybe he's working on something behind the scenes to bring in Chychrun and give up some assets to make that team better and think about not just this season, because this season seems to be lost for the Islanders, but to be better and be better prepared for next season.
Well, we're looking forward to see what happens throughout the trade deadline. And yeah, maybe that is a sneaky move that does happen. We'd love to get you on towards the playoffs to talk about the matchups and how everybody shapes up during that time. But Arthur, I want to thank you very much. You're always so gracious with your time when you come on. Thanks for jumping on the trade deadline show here, just talking a little hockey, and best of luck today. Hopefully it's not too stressful.
All right. Thanks, boys. Appreciate it. Take care.
Cheers. All right, so we move from one guest right into the next one. We have Clark Monroe waiting in the wings. He's the Maple Leaf fan who's beating the drum right now for the one and the only. Well, let's let him bring it on and see what he wants to say.
Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me here.
No worries. This is the Offside Hockey Talks trade deadline show, proudly brought to you by Boxing Rock Brewing Co. See it up in the corner. Absolutely delicious. This right here is the Puck Off Lagered Ale. Get yourself some when you come out east, or maybe across Canada soon. Who knows? Everything's coming down. But Clark Monroe, it's trade deadline day. The Leafs have made deals. Let's get going. But who is the guy that you want to see the Toronto Maple Leafs get the most today?
So, yeah, I put out a tweet late last night. And by the way, thanks to Arthur Staple, first off, for opening for me today. Appreciate that, Arthur. No, obviously Arthur Staple, he's amazing. But I'm glad that this isn't the beautiful trade deadline show, because I've literally pretty much rolled out of bed like 20 minutes ago, just getting the hot drinks ready to roll, getting caught up on everything. So here we go. Let's get into it. I put out a tweet late last night, and I put out some wish list items for today. Number one, before anybody else gets to Toronto, I'm hoping Peter Mrazek gets claimed by Arizona. I'm thinking Arizona might be the team, because we talked about this before. They just need bodies under contract, guys. They just need bodies under contract. So if Peter Mrazek's there, they just traded out Scott Wedgwood late last night. And when I saw that, I was like, why are they trading Scott Wedgwood out? They need people. What are they doing there? Right. And then all of a sudden I looked at the standings. Arizona's third last in the league. And I was like, maybe there's something there. Maybe there's something there. But my big name for today is Andrew Kopp. I was hoping for Andrew Kopp for a while, personally. He's the type of player I feel like the Leafs could really use. He's like a more skilled version of what Nick Ritchie was supposed to be. So I was like, you know what? He could be really good. And we see Tampa Bay go out and add Nick Paul and Brandon Hagel and those bottom six, mid six forwards that, have a little bit of tenacity to them. And not that Andrew Kopp is going to go out there and, overpower physically a whole lot of people, but he's a bigger body guy. He can play that type of game. And I just feel like adding another forward like him would really solidify them quite a bit. He's a decent contract. I don't think it would cost them a ton. It sounds like they wanted a first-round pick potentially, because they had a deal on the table for him already, but it sounded like they just wanted a first. And the Leafs have a few of those disposable right now. So I would love to see Andrew Kopp come in if they could get him. I think he balances out the lineup a lot. And one thing that I would really like the Leafs to do would be to add a forward so that other guys can play the roles they are supposed to play. If you can get a guy like Pierre Engvall on the fourth line permanently, that's perfect. If you can get Kerfoot down to the third line, that's great. Or if you can permanently put Kerfoot on the second line, that's also great. Just get guys in their roles so that there's not so much movement, and you get guys playing the way they should play, I guess, is the biggest thing for me. So Andrew Kopp would be really great. We'll see what happens.
No, definitely. Well, Josh is going to poo-poo your and mine Mrazek to the Arizona Coyotes. They just broke some news. Josh, what was that from the Arizona Coyotes?
Oh, okay, yeah. I think I know what you're talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah, however you say his name, signed 3 years, 2 point.
No.
Yeah, 2.2 what was it, 2.75 for 3 years. So I don't think that's going to happen. But now my theory is, and this kind of backs it up, is that the Buffalo Sabres will be the one to take Peter Mrazek because they don't have a goalie under contract next year. They're going to be a team who's looking to do a tandem and have control for at least 2 years on a goalie, and they have the cap space to do it. Maybe you go with Mrazek and Craig Anderson next year, bring Craig back for one more year. That has been talked about. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Sabres grab this guy.
Yeah, I mean, both teams, either team would be fine. The reason I think of Arizona again is because they don't have many guys under contract through next year either. And with the situation that they have going on, if they can get a guy for 2 more years after this, guaranteed that he can't go anywhere else, I just feel like that's too good to pass up for them. I mean, nobody's going to want to sign there. Nobody.
Yeah.
They signed Vamelka or whatever. Let's call him Milk. They signed Melky Cabrera. They signed him. But I mean, he's young and he's just looking for a contract. And I think that's a good deal for him to get. 2.75 for, he's had some flashy games this year. That's a fantastic contract for him. But they need to lock a guy down, and trading out Scott Wedgwood, a veteran journeyman guy who willingly went there, to me just feels weird. So that's why I thought maybe they're just clearing that spot open for Mrazek. Say, hey, Peter, come on in here. We're going to get you 40 starts a year. You're going to be great. So I'd be super curious to see. But Buffalo makes a ton of sense too, Josh. Another team that could be sneaky right now, that's not in that situation at all. They're in a good situation. Vegas. Vegas is struggling for goalies right now. Could they just want a veteran just to come in and see what happens? Try to steady the ship a little bit, because Robin Lehner might be out for the year. They don't have Marc-Andre Fleury. The rest of their goalies are Laurent Brossoit and company. So maybe they want Peter Mrazek to come in and just be a body for a while too. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there are teams around the league that could use a goalie. Maybe they want one for no assets going the other way. This could be the opportunity for that. I just feel like this is the time for Peter Mrazek. I think he might get claimed.
All right.
Some breaking news from Pierre LeBrun. It looks like UFA John Klingberg will be staying in Dallas.
That makes sense. Yeah. Dallas to me is a team that I was a little surprised that they aren't better than they are. They just have a tough time scoring goals consistently, and it's a little confusing because they have some really good players there. I don't know if it's the coaching style that they have or what, but the fact that they were shopping Klingberg early this year was a little surprising for me. And I hope they get him to sign to a long-term deal there, because he seems like a lifetime kind of star type of player. But that's interesting.
Yeah, no, it's one name that is off the trade market now. But hey, here's the thing. We all know that if someone shows up to Dallas's door with a boatload of whatever, that deal may change. And also, we also know when things are leaked to insiders or across the league, Clark and Josh, that it may just be them setting the market, so to speak, and saying, well, we're prepared to keep them because nobody's really met our offer or met what we want in the deal. So that could be a thing that they go and push forward here and just say, yeah, no, he's staying. Sorry, guys. And then next thing you know, he's traded. PK Subban-esque, so to speak.
Right.
He's not going anywhere. And then, of course, Shea Weber's at the door. Okay, well, we're leaving that one there. Yeah. So let's talk about the Mark Giordano deal, the one that everybody was waiting for the details on. Toronto does not give up a first-round pick. They give up 2 seconds and a third in which they get back, making a trade with Vancouver. So really 2 seconds gets them Mark Giordano, 50% retained, by the way, and Blackwell onto their roster. Not a bad deal. Let's just pause for just a second. Shout out to TikTok. Shout out to YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We are live across the streams. Shout out to Atopple and everyone over here on TikTok right now. Just want to say hi. I see you guys blowing up the comments, so got to make sure I pay respects across the feeds here. But yes, we have the Giordano deal. Leafs still keep their first. They keep Matt Nice. They keep Toppy Nemela, which allows them to make moves today if they want to. Or if you really need to move that Mrazek deal off your books, you can attach something to him to send him out the door to a team if you need to, if you want that 3.8 mil to do something else, which we all expect the Leafs do. Otherwise, they wouldn't be putting him on waivers. So, Clark, I'll get your opinion. I'll get Josh to rehash his. What did you think of the deal, and how did Dubas make out? Because apparently he can do no right in this market.
Has the return actually come down yet? Have we heard about the return yet for the
My
trade?
Lord. No,
I think my daughter was 4 when the trade happened. She's 15 now, so yeah.
That was a really funny like 2-hour stretch. I know it was like super stressful, but I was literally just sitting on the couch like doing the old thumb down refresh.
I was on the ice. I think it was announced at it was announced at 2:50. So the Zamboni driver came out and he was like, "Hey, Gio to the Leafs." I'm like, "What's the return?" He goes, "Oh, it hasn't come through yet." So I got off the ice. I'm like, "What's the return?" And he goes, "Oh, still no." I'm like, so I was gonna drive home. I'm like, I'll wait. And then at 3:30 hit, I'm like, I'm going home. So I got home and it still hadn't come through. And I'm like, did this actually happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody messing
What a time. Yeah, that was definitely funny. But shout out to Ryan Leslie for breaking that deal of Sportsnet.
Yes.
Good buddy of mine. He's a great dude, and I'm sure he knows Mark, so I'm sure that he got some rumblings that, hey, listen, I'm getting traded, and he was probably. I'm assuming he talked directly to Mark on that one because he's been in Calgary. Ryan has been in Calgary for a long time, so I'm sure he knows the Giordano family quite well. But that was just a funny timing of how that all went down, and they had to wait until 5 for the cap to clear and everything, and it was just like, oh man, we all learned something yesterday about the salary cap.
I know.
Yep.
Like everybody literally learned something yesterday, and the Leafs are out here just doing, acrobatics around the salary cap because that's literally all they have. They have that ability to do it, so you might as well. Mark Giordano to the Leafs is fantastic to me. A lot of people, I put out a video yesterday, shout out TikTok, but a lot of the comments were like, oh, 38-year-old, 40-year-old Mark Giordano, blah, blah, blah. This is a stabilizing force. It's not that he's going to come in and be a Norris Trophy winning defenseman like he has been in the past. This guy's going to come in and be a second pair, really stable guy. And I think the Leafs could really use that. They have it seems like a lot of nights they have a lot of chaos, and we've seen it. They've blown how many leads this year? They've given up how many three-goal?
Just two.
Just two? Oh, okay. Sorry. my math is way off.
This week, right?
Yeah, this week. So I mean, they've had how many games where they haven't started on time and they've gone down big early? Like they need a guy down there or back there, I should say, who can just be calm and like a reliable guy who, when he goes out there, the rest of the team, there's a lot of youth still. I mean, I think we often forget how young, even the good players, the star players, they're still young guys. And if they can have a guy like Mark Giordano being team dad out there and just being, the guy, voice of reason, I feel like that's going to help a ton. And I know we said this, I made a joke on my video. We said this last year about Nick Foligno, and that didn't go as well as we all hoped it would. But this is different. I feel like having a guy who has won a Norris Trophy. He's the true type of grinder. He's done it his whole career. He's been that kind of guy. He's a tough guy, but he's not like an enforcer by any stretch. But he's going to stand up for guys. I just think this is a big difference, and the fact that he's played with TJ Brody for a good chunk of his career, it's instant chemistry. He gets here. He's already in Toronto, so he's got 3 or 4 days ahead of his next game. So he gets a chance to settle in and meet everybody, which you can't say that about a lot of trade deadline acquisitions because usually they're right into game action and they don't have time to practice and get used to everybody and say hi. So he gets to go in there and meet everybody, settle in, and not to mention Colin Blackwell too. I think that's a really nice little piece. I think he's going to be a nice bottom six guy. There was a lot of talk when he was with the Rangers that the Leafs were looking at him then. So the fact that they got him now, he's a great penalty killer. So if they have to move out a guy, who knows who they have to move out today to make other things happen if they have to. But if they have to move out a guy who is on the penalty kill, he can jump in there and be another good penalty killer for them. He can play fourth line center. He can do a lot of things for this team. So he balances out the roster as well quite a bit, like I was saying earlier about maybe an Andrew Kopp acquisition. So I think both moves are really good balancing acts. This is a really good move by the team. And like you said, they didn't give up any major assets. They still have lots to play with today. And I heard Arthur Stable say it at the draft day floor as well, which I think is going to be bigger than people realize as well.
No, it definitely is. I want to ask you, obviously, you look at we're talking about the Leafs right now. The Leafs will have apparently a window from 2 to 3 where their deals will probably have to be done. because that's when we find out if players have cleared waivers or if they're going to be claimed, et cetera, et cetera. So that hour may be the window where we get to see some action from the Leafs.
We call that the power hour. That's where we bring out the good stuff from the freezer.
Right.
But that right there may be the window we have to wait for all day for the Toronto Maple Leafs to make some deals. I'm pretty sure there's probably some wink, wink, nudge, nudge handshake deals already done.
That's illegal. Can't do that.
Well, you know what? They've been known to get done here, there, and just about everywhere. So what do we realistically see here? And I'll start this by prefacing the fact I've asked this across the board. Clark, you're a big proponent. You think that Petr Mrazek is going somewhere. So that question's already been answered. But the other one is Jake Muzzin. Jake Muzzin, does he come back and is a regular on this lineup? We've asked Arthur Staple. We've asked Andrew Forbes. We're going to ask you, do the Leafs plan to keep Jake Muzzin on LTIR if a deal presents itself? Or is he too valuable to have sitting on the shelf and have that much rust going into the playoffs?
It's $1 million question. I think that is also going to be a deadline decision. I think it depends on what happens. Mark Giordano, I think, really pushes that decision down a little bit. I feel like getting a Mark Giordano allows them to play around a little bit with that idea. But I honestly think it depends what happens. If they can get another thing done today to bring in another guy, they need that flexibility on the cap. I can see this being a situation. Kyle Dubas says it all the time. If you have time, use it. And I think they're going to with Jake Muzzin. I think they're going to wait and see. It benefits them greatly if they can make him sit out for a while in terms of who they are able to bring in. And if you're going to put him back into this lineup in the playoffs, other guys have done it. I feel like Jake Muzzin, I think he should be more than willing and able to do it. And you're going to put him on a third pair probably when he gets back. I think he'll be able to handle it. I would hope he would be able to handle it, especially because he's skating with the team already. And a lot of people are saying, "Oh, well, there's no way he's going to be out because he's already skating with the team." Kucherov skated the whole time he was out when they Kucherov'd him. Like guys skate with the team, they can still be on LTIR. They do it all the time.
Well, do remember too, Sheldon Keefe did say last week that they are going to walk him back now and slow him down and basically take a couple steps back off of what he's been doing. So that to me is an indicator they're saying all of the right things going towards the deadline in case they do need to park his arse and keep that cap space available. So they've crossed their T's and dotted their I's. Josh, what is your thought here? Again, I'll get you to rehash on your Jake Muzzin take here.
Well, I don't think we'll actually have the answer for what's going on with Jake Muzzin until 3 o'clock or 3:01.
Yeah.
Because it really depends what moves the Leafs make, what they have here. I would prefer that they keep him on LTIR and then maybe in the last, 10 days of the season, use that LTIR conditioning stint, send him down to the Marlies. He qualifies for it. I'm sure he would agree to do that. He would have to play 3 games or be down there for 6 days. You can ask for a 2-game extension. I think that's the perfect fit. We did see that with Frederick Anderson last year. So we know the Leafs can and will use it. You get him down there, get him moving. He can play in the NHL. So just let him go down there and see some game action, get his timing back. I think it's kind of the perfect answer. If after today there's no room to bring him back, I'm sure he wouldn't mind the additional, month's rest, get his head all figured out, make sure he's 100%, play a couple games in the minors, and then come back up for the playoffs and win a cup. Really, it's a plan.
It's a great plan.
That's all there is to it.
He's got the inside track over there. Let's go with that one. That makes the day seem like more fun. It still does mean the fact that we do have to wait with our hands under our arses until after 2 p.m. Eastern to see what will happen. I want to ask you guys, where did it go wrong with Petr Mrazek in Toronto? I said to you, Clark, on the weekend there, Josh, I said to you too on our power show last weekend on Saturday, that he came out of the gate kind of like David Clarkson. Injuries, befuddlements, not getting the chance to really solidify himself with the Maple Leafs and the fan base for that matter. Getting injured early in the season really doesn't bode well for you. But where else did it go wrong here? This guy seemingly has a good track record throughout the NHL and some pretty good markets too. Detroit's no hockey slouch for fans. But is just the media and things that go on here in Toronto too much for some guys to handle, especially when you're not up to your standard of playing?
Yeah, that's another $1 million question, isn't it? Was it the goaltending coach, Steve Briere? Did he just not mesh well with them? Was it that early injury that just threw him off too much? Was it the style the team plays just didn't match with how he plays? Was it, there's multiple different reasons and ideas of what could have gone wrong with Peter. I feel like it was option C there. I want to say it was just the style the team was playing. He seems like, from everything we've seen this year and from everything I've seen in the past from Mrazek, he's kind of more of a chaotic goalie. He's more athletic. He moves around a lot. And when he was on Carolina, they have a really strong defensive group. And I think that kind of played well with the way Mrazek plays. Now that he's in Toronto, it's a bit more chaotic, as we all know. Some nights they're great defensively, other nights it's a pond hockey game. So I feel like with Mrazek jumping around and flying around, how many times, Steve Dangle yells about it all the time. If you're a goalie, tend the goal. We saw Peter Mrazek like in the face-off circles sometimes. So I think it was just his style, the way he plays, just didn't quite match up with how Toronto plays overall. And when you got a goalie out of position, all of a sudden the players are gonna squeeze their sticks a little harder. They're gonna be out of position. I made this kind of analogy, James, with you the other night, that if your backup goalie's in and you aren't confident in them, all of a sudden you're making more mistakes because you're trying not to make mistakes. And I feel like that was just a big combination that the Leafs, it was Peter out of position, but then the Leafs were out of position because they were trying to be in position, but they were out. So it was just a big mess. And there was no calming factor there. And then Shelgren comes in last week, right? He wasn't a Vezina winning goalie. He was just in position and he was making common saves. And we were all thinking, this is amazing. And did he have a great game? Yeah. He made some great saves and everything. But for the most part, he was just stopping pucks and in position for those 2 games. So I think that was just a nice change of pace. And we saw, if this guy can do it, and Peter's clearly not doing it, it was time. So I'm hoping there's a clean break today because it would help the team a lot salary wise. So if that happens, great. If not, send him to the minors. We talked about this with Muzz and Josh just a second ago. Send Peter to the minors. Let him start a bunch of games down there while the Leafs kind of play this next little stretch out with their younger guys. Or, if Sateri comes in for that cheap deal, maybe he gets a few games. Who knows? But give Shelgren some games. Maybe Jack Campbell comes back. Then you have Peter Mrazek just playing games in the minors and bring him up for the playoffs. And he's your third string guy. That doesn't hurt my feelings either because he has played well in the past. Maybe he has a flash in the pan if they need him. But overall, I'm kind of hoping for a clean break today. I think it's probably in the best interest for everybody.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think Shelgren can carry the load for a little bit here. It's just funny you mentioned his first game. I was in the building for that and we're watching
jealous.
the game. And about halfway through, my buddy taps me on the shoulder. He goes, "This is crazy." I said, "What?" He goes, "He's staying between his posts." I'm like, "Well, yeah." So it was just, I think he can carry it. Like, you probably don't want to run Campbell Shelgren at the moment in the playoffs, but if he, for the last 20-ish games, can show he can do it, maybe he's okay to be a backup on the bench. We got to see what the new guys got. Maybe you bring in somebody today. The possibilities are endless, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, and let's just say one more thing here, James, before we move on. Goalies have done this in the past. Shelgren just did this in Sweden last season. He did this where he stole the starting job late in the season from a veteran goalie in Sweden and went on to win a championship. We saw Jordan Binnington do it with the Blues. The options here, we can go on for years. Years back. This happens. It's not uncommon that a goalie can come in on a cheap deal and come out of nowhere, allegedly, and then all of a sudden win a bunch of games and make a push. So I don't think we need to look at this as a poor man's option. I think this is a legitimate option that we need to consider as a fan base, and it's not a bad thing. I think if we can get a goalie to be stable, who cares who it is? It doesn't matter who it is. Was he a first-round pick? No, doesn't matter. This guy comes in and he's being stable, and that's all we really need. So Go Shelgren, go. But at the end of the day, this is we often forget because he's been out for a while. This is Jack Campbell's net, and when he comes back, it will be his net. So whatever they can do to make him more comfortable, if it's half games the rest of the way, if it's all the games the rest of the way, if it's less than half, whatever it is to get Jack ready, let's all be honest, it's gonna be Jack's net. It's his to lose anyways. So we'll see what happens when he gets back.
Listen, it's never a bad thing to get lightning in a bottle. Like you said, there's a lot of goaltenders who've done this type of thing. Let's just enjoy the fact that I said this earlier with Andrew Forbes and Josh. Hey, the Leafs are due to hit on a goaltender. The Leafs are due to get this situation that lots of teams seem to have the benefit of running with through their season. So the Leafs are due, and if they hit on Satari and on Shalgren and Campbell comes back, man, we are an embarrassment of riches. Let's go with that. It's exciting. Clark Monroe, before we let you go today, my friend, let me know what is the one deal the Toronto Maple Leafs make and why is it so impactful?
Yeah.
Say it, Clark. Say it.
You're just you want me to say Marc-Andre Fleury, or what do you want me to say?
No, you know exactly what you want me to say. What I want you to say.
Oh, Troy Terry?
Yeah. Breaking.
The Ducks are interesting. They are really interesting. But even Ricardo Raquel, I don't know if it's tough because between Ricardo Raquel or Andrew Kopp, between those two players, I think I still want Andrew Kopp. I know Raquel has been good in the past, but the way Kopp plays, he's so versatile. He can play every position. He's a center. I guess Raquel has played center a little bit in the past too, but Kopp's size, he's a great penalty killer too. Again, I just look at if they can add a special teamer, regardless of who it is, I think the more special teamers you have on your team, the better going into the playoffs. Because yes, there are fewer penalties, but the ones that do happen are more important. So it amps up. So if you can have the best penalty kill and a very good power play, which they have, that's a win. You need to have those things going into the playoffs. They need to capitalize on every special teams opportunity they have. And Andrew Kopp, I think, can be that guy. He can shut down on penalty kill. He's got size. He can be a shutdown guy on 5-on-5 as well. But he also has an offensive punch, and he can maybe be the guy who ignites Tavares's line back into what it was earlier in the year. Or it allows Kerfoot to go back on that line consistently and really help that line get back to what it was. Again, because Kerfoot, Tavares, Nylander has worked this season quite well. It's just a matter of getting back to that. So if Kopp can come back or come onto this roster and go with Kampf and Kasha, hopefully Kasha's healthy. But if he's not, Mikheyev and Kampf or whatever the line would be, adding a forward to that group, I think will be more impactful than people give it credit for, because everyone's like, they need to fix the goaltending and they need to fix the defense. I think adding a forward would help all of that, honestly. Being more stable up front, having better matchups up front, having more pressure on the forward groups would eventually trickle down to defense and goaltending. So shout out to TikTok. I know James is smiling for the crew over there.
Well, I'm gonna touch this one up right here. Myron up there. Shout out to Myron over on TikTok. He goes, we got to ask Clark if he's warmed up since jumping in the snow and doing the snow angels in the man-made boxers on the weekend.
Yeah. It's slowly getting there. My internal body temperature is coming back. That was a lot of fun, actually. So it wasn't even that bad. It felt pretty invigorating. So it was not too bad.
You had more energy going through that video than the Leafs did the whole game against the Nationals.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Anyways, gentlemen.
Clark Monroe, it has been a slice to have you on the show always. Be sure to check out the Squadcast every single Tuesday night. They are there. You can check Clark Monroe out on TikTok. He is the live king. Also, you can check him out on the old Twitter sphere. The handle's right there. Clark, thank you very much for taking the time so early in the morning on your own.
I'm going to go have another cup of tea. See you, boys.
Yeah. Bye. All right, we're going to take just a moment break here, but on the other side, we are going to have Mr. Man right here, Zach Lang. He covers the Edmonton Oilers, and we have a lot to talk to him about, obviously. Just a moment here. Josh, if you want to carry the stream for just a moment, I have to take the coveted bathroom break because we do not get commercials here.
No, I got to head out for 10, 15 minutes, so this will work well.
All right, one sec.
I think you're on mute.
Look at the unprofessionalism going here. Holy smokes. I haven't done this before. There it is. It's Zach Lang. He's sitting beside me, the man, the myth, the legend from the OilersNation.com. What is going on, my friend? How are you enjoying so far your trade deadline day?
James, I'm doing good, man. Thanks so much for having me. Just set up here at Nation headquarters in Edmonton. Just awaiting the first moves of the day here. So, big trade early this morning. Nathan Bilyeu going to Pittsburgh. Real groundbreaking deal over there for the Jets and the Penguins, right? So, things are well here. Just gearing up for what should be a busy day.
It does seem like it's going to be a busy day. Unfortunately for Leaf fans, I think we won't get our busy part of the day until after the waiver deadline, as we were just talking about with Clark Monroe there. Wondering for you, the Edmonton Oilers, let's get it out there right now. What are they looking for today? What can they do? What's on the table for them to move out? Obviously, they probably want to bring in some key pieces to help this team obviously secure that playoff spot.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that, James. I don't envision it to be a very busy day here for the Edmonton Oilers. I think at most there might be a depth move or two to, acquire a left shot defenseman who can munch some minutes on the back end a little bit. There's been some guys like Nick Leddy, Brett Kulak, Zdeno Chara. Those are the kind of names that have been thrown around here. For the Oilers, I think they're really looking to add a physical presence on the back end. I'm of the mindset that I'd like to see something bigger. I would like to see them go after a Jacob Chikrin or a Travis Sanheim, really trying to shore up that back end, which has been, a bit of a weakness at times this year for the Oilers. Something I'm sure we'll hear from Ken Holland later today is that, he envisioned Evander Kane as sort of a deadline acquisition for this club. He's been here for a few months now, and he's looked tremendous, producing in the top six. He's almost been a point per game guy. So doesn't expect to be too much of a busy day here around Edmonton.
Well, you know what? And GMs have a way of surprising us. When things are quiet, maybe that's when things are happening the most. I do see them being able to move for a physical defenseman. That is something they really want to bring in Edmonton. Now, you mentioned Zdeno Chara. That would be more, for me, I think, a bottom pair guy, especially what he's brought this season. As Jeff Merrick likes to say, you can see the clubhouse now. It's no longer, the back nine. He's on the doorstep. What would he bring to the Edmonton Oilers if he were to get there? Obviously, a big guy, can play on the penalty kill, but as far as chasing the play, I don't think he has that left him anymore.
No, I don't think so. But, he's a guy who's got that presence, right? He's a veteran leader. He's a physical guy, and he's a guy that's won a Stanley Cup before. He would fit in really well with the veteran leadership group that the Oilers already have, and guys like Duncan Keith and Mike Smith that have, been there and been around the NHL for a very long time, right? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, I think Chara's a pretty good acquisition. His on-ice numbers are still respectable this year, and his isolated impacts, especially defensively where the Oilers really need him, have been strong. So I think he's exactly the kind of guy that this team is looking for. Now, is he willing to come out west to Edmonton? That's where the question really lies, right? His family's out east there, so would he be willing to come for a playoff push? Who knows? Maybe he'd want to go to a team that's maybe a little closer to contending. Maybe a Colorado or a Florida or something of that ilk, right? Where he's got a legitimate shot. They say anything can happen in the playoffs, but It's hard to imagine the Oilers going on a really, really deep run here this year.
Well, what are they missing? What are the Edmonton? We talk about what they can bring in for trade to have sustainable success in the playoffs. Obviously, you need a bunch of key elements. So now I need to understand, what would the Oilers need, I guess, to further themselves next season? Because you're just saying you don't see the run coming this year. What do they add? And obviously, there's the hidden thing, the Connor McDavid timetable here, where he wants to see some sustainable success before maybe he asks for a way out of there.
Yeah, I don't envision Connor McDavid ever asking for a way out of Edmonton. I think that's on my part, I think it's a little bit of a lazy narrative. I think he's a guy who is driven to win and he's driven to succeed here in Edmonton. He wants to be a part of the solution. He doesn't want to be one of those guys who's, asking out or something like that. I think that would be a terrible look for McDavid. For the rest of his career, it'd be a stain, in my opinion. When we look at the way this roster is built, obviously, as you guys are well aware in Toronto right now, goaltending is really important. The Edmonton Oilers have ran with Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen for the last 3 years here, and it's not really working out well for them. So, for a real deep run, obviously that's going to be an area they have to address as well. And I think they really need some help on the back end in terms of their depth. Some big bodies on the back end, especially on that third pairing right now. The Oilers' top four right now looks something like, Darnell Nurse, Cody Ceci, Duncan Keith, and Evan Bouchard, which has been a top four that's actually surprised me. Guys like Ceci and Keith have actually been playing better than I ever expected them to this year. So I'll give those guys lots of credit. So, some depth on the back end is going to be needed for sure. And up front, I think, they need some more scoring through their lineup. And I think for the Oilers, the biggest issue they've ran into here this year, and especially as of late, was the injury bug. So, they're getting guys like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins back in the lineup here within the next week. Jesse Puljujarvi just got back in the lineup a couple of days ago. Puljujarvi's been one of my favorite players to watch this entire season. So I think there's a lot of pieces that are there for this Oilers team. I think, staying healthy is probably the biggest key. And I wouldn't mind seeing another, impact player or two on the back end for sure.
Well, Chychrun was one that you did say, that might be a needle mover for the Edmonton Oilers. And that is something I think would more be a draft day or summertime acquisition for the Edmonton Oilers. I want to ask you, you look around the league right now, a lot of moves did happen throughout this week so far. What was one that jumped off the page to you, like either, whoa, that was a bit of an overpayment, or holy, I didn't know that guy was going to be on the move?
Probably the Ben Sherratt deal to Florida, honestly. We're talking about a first-round pick for a guy who's basically a big body. He really doesn't have great on-ice impacts. And, I understand the mindset from the Florida Panthers here, right? You're going all in. You want to beef up your blue line. They got a bit of a smaller blue line as well, especially in their top four. So, bringing in a guy like Sherratt, who's a big physical body, is a strong addition for them. Credit to Kent Hughes and the Montreal Canadiens for getting a ransom on somebody that I kind of envision as a replacement level player, really. No offense to Ben Sherratt, but, I don't envision him being a guy who really pushes the needle very far for that team down there. But again, you know what? Depth is key, and for this Florida team, they're going all in. The Giroux trade obviously was a massive one as well for them. You talk about potent top nines. I don't know if there's a team in the league that's as deep right now as this Florida Panthers team is. They got 3 elite scoring lines right now. They're going to be a handful to deal with in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, they definitely are. And I mean, you look at the injury to Ekblad as well. That there, you have a player who's going to come back refreshed and ready to go. Any guys who are nicked up, they get the time to heal. I'll ask you about this one here, the Brandon Hagel deal that was made. Obviously, Tampa paid a king's ransom, it seems, to get a player that, yes, is effective, but also is under control for a couple more years. What is your thought there? 2 first-round picks. That is crazy. But obviously, Tampa bets high on the guys they think that are going to be the Barclay Goodrows, that are going to be the Blake Colemans. They're really high on those, and there's a reason why they had one of the best third lines in hockey for so long.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a massive price to pay for a guy, who's probably a third-line player, right? But again, for a team like Tampa Bay that's so tight to the cap all of the time, they're looking to try and get value, and they're willing to buy value, and I think that's exactly what they did in Hagel. As you mentioned, he's under control for a few more years here. He's going to be an effective player for them in their bottom six on that third line. Obviously there was the acquisition of Nick Paul as well yesterday. Another move that I liked. I know the Oilers were looking at acquiring Nick Paul. Evidently, the Tampa Bay Lightning were able to swoop in there and grab him, rather. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Tampa Bay. They're another team that could be looking to add a couple more big pieces. And just back to Florida and the Aaron Ekblad news, my colleague at Daily Faceoff, Frank Saravalli, reported that Ekblad was going to be heading to the LTIR. So that frees up $7 million for the Panthers to play with for a team that's going all in. That's massive at this time of year. So it wouldn't surprise me in the least to see Florida, taking another big swing at a bigger name player that might still be available out there.
Yeah, well, what made me really nervous about the LTIR situation there for Florida was I thought they'd maybe take a run at Mark Giordano. And really a player every Leaf fan was kind of getting their heart set on. So we did get Mark Giordano here in Toronto. I want to ask you about that price that was paid. 2 seconds, a third. They did get the 50% retention from the Seattle Kraken, and as well got Blackwell in the deal. Then flipped Travis Dermott to Vancouver and recouped a third. So really, if you're looking at all in all, 2 seconds out the door for a 50% retained Giordano and Blackwell on the bottom six.
Yeah, I like it quite a bit, honestly. Giordano's a guy that obviously I've seen a lot of over my years here, covering the Edmonton Oilers. So, a little bit of bad blood with Giordano and Edmonton, but nonetheless, he's a player that I've always really admired in the NHL, and his ability to continue to play at a high level is, I think, exactly what the Leafs are looking for. I think the most important thing about this deal that I don't think a lot of people are talking about is Giordano's familiarity with TJ Brody on the back end.
Yep.
You look at the way those two guys played together in Calgary, they top pairing minutes for a very long time for the Flames, and they did a very good job of it. I think that's a huge piece that's really going to provide a boost for the Leafs on the back end. The left side obviously is a little decimated out there for you guys with Jake Muzzin, dealing with concussion issues. So, to bring in a veteran guy like Giordano, we know Kyle Dubas loves those type of guys. You look at guys like Wayne Simmons and Jason Spetz as examples. Hard to imagine Giordano not re-signing in Toronto at the end of the year either. It's a hometown reunion for him. And I saw some quotes from his father, Paul, the other day about, the family's excitement to have Mark back home. So a special moment for a special player, and it's going to be great to see him playing for his hometown club.
No, I'm looking forward to it. Now, obviously, we alluded to the fact that the Toronto fans are probably going to have to wait until after the 2 p.m. Eastern waiver deadline to know what this team is going to do beyond that. Obviously, waiting for more cap space, waiting for deals to be able to shake through. What do you see realistically? We talked about the Edmonton Oilers. Let's talk about the Leafs. What do you realistically see the Leafs being able to do today? A lot of it's tied to what happens with Petr Mrazek if you keep Jake Muzzin on the LTIR. But they do seemingly have some wiggle room to make some deals. Would an Andrew Kopp be a guy they get, a Tyler Mott, maybe a back-end guy like Shen or Braun? Where do you think the Leafs, path takes them today?
Yeah, I think guys like Tyler Mott and Luke Shen are good options for sure. Obviously, Patrick Allvin out there in Vancouver, they're probably looking to be more on the seller side right now. I think Dom Luszczyszyn at The Athletic has the Canucks at about an 8% chance to make the playoffs as it stands right now. So, from what I understand about the Canucks, they're probably looking to be closer on the selling side at this point in time. Tyler Mott and Luke Shen, I think those are good, very, very good options for the Leafs as well. Probably be relatively cost effective as well to bring them in. For Toronto, I think really depth is key for them. Tyler Mott's a guy that can slide in on that fourth line and probably give some more effective minutes than guys like Wayne Simmons or Jason Spezza have been able to this season for them. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think the biggest question, as you mentioned, James, is what happens in net today. Does Mrazek clear? Does Tari clear? Is there another deal in the works for a goaltender? Because the truth of the matter is as soon as those waivers clear at 2 p.m. Eastern time, there's an hour to deadline. So there's not a lot of time for Kyle Dubas and co to work. So you have to imagine that they've got some contingency plans in place at the very least right now.
I would say they probably have framework deals, with X team and X team. Hey, if X happens, we were able to do this. Would you be interested in that? This is what we can offer. That's why I'm thinking there may be, I wouldn't say a floodgate, but a stopgap right now where the Leafs may have not control of the market, but have some deals in place where things fall the way they need to. But that hour as well, they do have some flexibility. We all learned there's new nuances to the cap yesterday with the 5 p.m. Boost, I guess, team gets for making deals. So that's why they had to wait for the Giordano deal. So we're wondering now if there's something else we don't know about or haven't read about. Obviously, that was something I think a lot of fans learned yesterday, that there was that little variance there that teams could use, which the Leafs definitely exploited.
Yeah, absolutely. And credit to him too, right? I mean, Brandon Pridham's a bit of a cap genius out there, right? So yeah, good on the Leafs for trying to find a way to get around it. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. A little quieter than I expected to be so far here this morning. I mean, yesterday was a pretty hectic day. I think I wrote 8 articles up at Daily Faceoff breaking down trades. So we'll see what happens here in the next couple of hours, but it's going to be fun nonetheless.
Yeah, we got about 4 hours and 45 minutes left here on trade deadline day for deals to happen. Anton Forsberg just re-upping in Ottawa, so there's a goalie target off the market for some teams who may have been looking for a stopgap solution at the Leafs. But they did bring in Satari. They do have Shalgren as well. We will see what happens with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but I want to get your opinion across the league so far. What is the team that has done, I guess, the best so far leading up and obviously tackling the deadline, and why is it the Colorado Avalanche?
Yeah, I mean, they've done a good job, obviously. I really like the Manson acquisition on the back end. Of course, his dad, Dave, a former Edmonton Oiler, and a current assistant coach for the Edmonton Oilers too. So, get a little bit of that Manson blood on the back end for Colorado's, I think, is a good move. It's hard to not look at what's going on in Florida. We've talked about it already here. Tampa Bay loading up with Brandon Hagel and Nick Paul, adding some key depth up front, as well as Florida with the Sherratt and Giroux deals. I think the Giroux deal is going to be massive for that team. On top of that, he's a guy that's played in important playoff games. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he adds to the mix there in Florida.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited to see what happens there. Okay, so Zach, before we let you go today on our trade deadline coverage, I want to ask you, what is one deal that you see comes down that is a huge deal that nobody saw coming? Is it going to be Chychrun? Is it going to be Fleury? Does Patty Kane go on the move, even though they say he's not? Or is it the guy down in Dallas and John Klingberg that Dallas just said this morning isn't moving, which is probably just more of a ploy than anything? What is the big deal that happens that gets us all like, whoa, that just happened?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's going to be a massive one at the moment. Honestly, I think Fleury's probably the one that everybody's waiting for. It sounds like Minnesota is the most likely destination there for the Flower. Of course, great connection there for him with Billy Guerin. They played together in Pittsburgh in some of Guerin's final years in the NHL. So I think that's the one that I'm really kind of interested to see shake down. Chychrun obviously is going to be an interesting one as well. In the first place, it seems strange that Arizona even wants to deal him, considering how cost-controlled he is for a number of years down the road. But it's going to be interesting to say the least. I mean, I think there's a very good chance we see some moves that maybe people don't expect. What those are, I don't know. But you never know what can happen around this time of year. There's always moves that can surprise. Hey, maybe Detroit's got something up their sleeves. Stevie Yzerman's been pretty quiet so far here this year. One of those guys I don't think likes to let a lot leak.
No, there's a lot of GMs that are quiet. Like Lou Lamoriello is another one. We just had Arthur Staple on a little bit ago there, asking him what he thought that the New York Islanders would do, and really he said, outside of maybe Andy Green, it doesn't seem like much is going to be on the move there, because really the belief on the island is the team just ran into that 13-game road trip, and then of course COVID. So some teams that we think may be poised to make moves, maybe poised just to run it back without the COVID blanket over them next year and see exactly what they have. But I can't wait to see what happens in the final, 4 hours plus here of trade deadline. good luck to you today. Where can everybody find your work and find everything that you were a part of there, Zach?
Yeah, so everybody head to dailyfaceoff.com. My colleague Frank Saravalli, former hockey insider, rather, he's breaking a bunch of deals here today. So we got a bunch of coverage going up over there at DFO today. And as well, you can visit my work at OilersNation.com.
Well, Zach, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Look forward to having you on towards the playoffs and then probably into the off season when we discuss what players are going where yet again for free agency.
Yeah, you betcha. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Have a great one. All right, so yes, this is Offsides trade deadline coverage for 2022. We are proudly brought to you by Boxing Rock Brewing Co. See it up there in the corner. There, Puck Off Lagerdale is absolutely delicious right there. Yum, yum, yum. The Toronto Maple Leafs obviously are in a holding pattern right now. Jake DeBrusk signing a contract extension, looks like, with the Boston Bruins. Surprise, surprise. Doesn't mean he won't be dealt. But, moves are happening, signings are happening as teams go down to the wire with their own UFA players. We'll see what happens with the Toronto Maple Leafs towards the deadline here. I want to thank everybody for jumping on. It's been great so far. We've had Arthur Staple. Zach Lang was just on. We had Clark Monroe, Andrew Forbes. My colleague, Josh Egan, had to step out. Of course, my co-host for the most. But we were rocking this. We are steady now, 2 hours and 16 minutes into our coverage of the trade deadline show. What do you want to see? We'll take some user things now. We're live on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and TikTok. You got a question, whatever you're doing, whatever feed you are on, though, drop a like, drop a subscribe, drop a follow. If you're on TikTok, tap that screen. Let's go. Let's have some fun. Right now, we're on the user portion. We may have a couple other guests swinging by as the day shakes out. The Toronto Maple Leafs not able to do a whole heck of a lot, we don't think, until after the 2 p.m. waiver deadline. But what are your thoughts so far? What do you like about the Giordano deal? Wonder what's going on here. Jack McBain, the highly sought-after player that is at university right now, has just been flipped to Arizona for a second. That was a pick that was definitely rumored to be had. Absolutely things happening here. The big thing about today is, too, guys, a lot of UFAs and teams are going right down to the wire, and they're getting the best value deal, A, from the team, but B, from the player, and coming together. You saw the Jake DeBrusk one. That's surprising to me, with a player who definitely wanted to be, on the move out of Boston. But then also you see the moves like the young goaltender Vamelkovic in Arizona there. Give me just a second, folks. I'm just getting even on trade deadline day, I still can't escape work. Book the day off, but work's still calling. It's okay. It's okay. So obviously we're talking about players right now that have signed deals with their current team that were expected to be on the move. Jake DeBrusk is one of them. The young goaltender Vamelkovic. I think that's how you say it, down. We'll just call him Milk, as Clark Monroe said, down in Arizona. There will be others. John Klingberg, now rumored not to be moving from the Dallas Stars. They're saying they're going to hold on to him for their push. We all know that is somewhat posturing from teams and GMs, because they obviously do not want to let everybody know what their asking price is sometimes, or to say, hey, the market's done and we're not trading them. Those things definitely play a factor in here. What are you looking for on moves here? What do you want to see the Leafs do as we wait for Josh to get back? We're having a fun time. Running out of coffee and running on fumes. We're excited about the Giordano deal, excited about Blackwell. There's things that are definitely going to be able to happen today. We just have to wait for the waiver wire, which is a long ways away yet. Still about 4 hours and 40 minutes left here in trade deadline day. We will not be on for the entire duration, but we will have some sort of wrap show tonight, obviously talking about everything that has happened. Yeah. Just watching John Liu here talk about the Montreal Canadiens. I don't think there's a whole lot more that they can do outside of Jeff Petrie. Maybe if you're looking to move a Brendan Gallagher. We shall see. It's crazy to think the asking prices, though, on some players, and the Leafs were still able to retain their first, retain their top prospects in Matthew Nyes, retain their top prospects in Topi Nemela, Ronnie Hervinen. All of those still a part of the Maple Leafs organization, which is huge. Absolutely crazy. But hey, if you're on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, or over on TikTok, drop a comment. Let me know you're watching. Let me know what you are thinking the Leafs are going to do. Just need to see what is going on here throughout the waiver wire. Yep, I'm wondering. So Elliot Friedman reporting the same thing that I was just saying. Interesting, the fact that the trade request for Jake DeBrusk is still there. The extension maybe just makes it more palatable for a team to take him, knowing that they had him cost controlled. Interesting to hear Zach Lang talk about the fact he thinks Mark Giordano will sign a team-friendly deal to stay with the Toronto Maple Leafs beyond this season. Great to see Giordano and Brody back together. Hopefully we get to see Lyubushkin and Riley stay together. And then a Sandino Muzzin pairing. Hello. Or maybe the Leafs go get Justin Braun or Luke Shen or somebody else for this 6. But say what you will about Mr. Kyle Dubas. He's definitely out there doing moves and making things happen. I do not see a player like Jakob Chychrun moving myself. James Reimer is interesting. Maybe a Toronto Maple Leaf again. Maybe that's something that you do. We shall see. We shall see. All right. Right now, I see we're stalling out just a little bit here. So what we're going to do is we are going to step away, maybe be back throughout the day, or we will jump on tonight and do a trade recap. What a great show. Arthur Staple swinging by, Zach Lang, Clark Monroe, Andrew Forbes. Be sure to check out each of those on their respective platforms. Hey, this has been, so far, Offside Hockey Talks Trade Deadline of 2022, proudly brought to you by our friends over at Boxing Rock Brewing Co. I know I'm pointing on TikTok and there's nothing there. This right here, the beautiful Puck Off Lager Ale. Be sure to get yourself some when you come out east. But this has been brought to you by them. Cheers, everyone. Enjoy Trade Deadline Day. We will be back later on.